Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. You are at the Stanislaus County Board of Supervisors meeting. It is November 1st. Sorry we're starting late. It's about 9:05. If everybody could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for our invocation by Pastor Lonnie Skiles from Big Valley Grace Community Church.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We read a short passage of scripture from Daniel chapter 2. It said, "Let the name of God be blessed forever and ever. For wisdom and power belong to him. It is he who changes the times and the epochs. He removes the kings and establishes kings. He gives wisdom to wise men and knowledge to men of understanding. And it is he who reveals the profound and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with him. To you, O God of my Father, I give thanks and praise." And so, Heavenly Father, we come into your presence this morning with thanksgiving. So grateful, Lord, for the freedoms and privileges that we have in this community as well as the state and nation. Lord, these are wonderful gifts that you have given. You're the one who rises men up and women up, puts them down. Particularly in this season, Lord, as we are preparing to vote and elevating new public servants, Lord, we would pray that those who fear you, who honor you, who love righteousness and that which is good for our communities would come into places of service. And so, Lord, I pray you bless these men with incredible wisdom here today. Would you bring to light the things that are hidden? Would you help them the decisions that are made here today to be a blessing to this community? And all these things, Lord, we seek to honor you first and foremost above all things. And we give you the praise in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Lord bless you today.
Okay, Lonnie, thank you very much. That was great. Okay, we're going to start off today with a presentation. And we have a accommodation for our public health officer, Dr. Julie Way-Champagne, is thinking about hitting the road on us here. And Marianne Lilly is going to do the presentation. Marianne, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. So here we go. Dr. Julie Way-Champagne has decided that it is time to retire. Dr. V, as we know her, joined Stanislaus County to become our health officer in 2017 after working as the assistant public health officer in San Joaquin County and in past state roles. She had big shoes to fill following our wonderful Dr. Walker's tenure. I didn't realize how important and valuable her decision to join us was at that time. I'd like to share with you just how credentialed and skilled this physician is. After medical school at Wayne State University, Detroit, Michigan, she completed 2 physician residency programs, 2 fellowships, earned a master's degree in public health, and after all that formal education, including at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, she maintains competency by continuously earning board certification. Not just one board, she's double boarded. She's has been board certified in both infectious diseases and in preventive medicine. She's published on various studies and clinical observations alongside esteemed colleagues from the United States and other countries. And for many years, she served the public through dedicated service at both the state and county level. What does this mean to those of us who don't have that kind of a resume? She's contributed to better health management for our population. She saved lives. Her work promotes better health. She's an advisor. She's often sharing information with physicians who care directly for their patients. Her work prevents and limits the spread of illness to others in the community. Much of what she accomplishes you don't hear about because it's successful. It's prevention. When Dr. V applied for this important role in Stanislaus County, with her permission, we had input from others that had worked with her in the past. Remarks like enthusiastic, diligent, calm, thoughtful, professional, respectful, a leader, passionate about the public's health, inspiring and empowering, self-assured but open to others' opinions, hardworking, great partner, approachable, well-informed, and able to communicate that knowledge. Decisive, resourceful, collaborative, goal-oriented, listens to staff, tactful and patient, strong work ethic, follows through, smart, humble, does the right thing, sets priorities and gets it done, pleasant and a can-do attitude. I have found working with her that she is all those things and more. She's funny and caring, and she's a really good teacher. She strives for excellence. She truly wants every individual in our community to have the best chance at their best health. She cares about ensuring that strategies meet our diverse community needs. She's so very skilled at data analysis, often pulling data sets to facilitate her own analysis to make informed decisions. She's so well read, even when the information is changing so fast it seems impossible to keep up. She's well networked, having resources to call on when needed. I can attest that she advocated hard for our county's residents, whether it was about policy or funding or other resources. That comment about doing what's right, she didn't always prevail when working with policymakers and influencers at higher levels, but she represented you and me and all of the members of our community really well. She mentored staff, including me. She developed strong relationships with many community leaders, business leaders, city and county leaders, hospital CEOs, medical officers, schools, law enforcement, first responders, faith-based leaders, media, and many more. She listened to others' perspectives, shared information, and she worked for solutions that would meet as many common and diverse objectives as possible. She pushed us in a polite but focused way. She wanted to get things done for the community. She really demonstrated our collaborative culture. I remember a time when a particular inpatient resource was extremely limited, and she had to determine how to divide it in her role as the Medical Health Operational Area Coordinator of the Mohawk. It was her responsibility, but she didn't do it alone. She pulled the medical officers from those facilities together, and jointly they worked out a protocol and agreed upon a fair formula. That's just one example. That's how she worked for us, for our community, with fairness and equity and a collaborative spirit. Dr. V proudly served on the first 5 Stanislaus Commission, is a member of the Stanislaus Medical Society, and co-chair of the Opioid Safety Coalition, and more. On a larger scale, she served on the California Tuberculosis Elimination Advisory Committee, and served as chairperson on the Public Health Advisory Committee nationally for the Infectious Diseases Society of America. And she's president of the California Conference of Local Health Officers. Dr. V was the first recipient of the Stanislaus County Equal Rights Commission's Humanitarian Award. Dr. V, you made us better. You made us stronger. Your contributions will live on, and you will be missed. It is with bittersweet emotions that I present Dr. Julie Way-Champagne to you for recognition this morning. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary Ann. Julie, I think we're going to have you come up here if you could. Okay, here we go. So you're leaving. So we've got we've got a few things that we want to give you. This is our certificate that we hand you, and we'll get you this, and then we've got the proverbial clock that we give everybody here, and what a time it has been the last few years here, and we all appreciate and respect the work you've done. I mean, you couldn't have asked to come in. Probably the first couple of years started off great, right? Everything was going good, and then we rolled into the pandemic, and it just turned into a storm. We'll say it that way. We won't use but it was a storm that you were right in the middle of, and you handle it as good as you can handle it. We all had different opinions up here as far as what was going on and how to handle it, right? A lot of politics got involved in it too. But you were steady all the time. You were always steady up there, Julie, and I know that all of us could you had easily to access you. with questions that we had. We'd sit here in these meetings, we'd have the room full of people back when we had people back in the chambers, and a lot of distrust of what was going on, but you just sat through this thing, and you were steady with your answers, and you were always steady with the information you provided to us. And a lot of times it's stuff way beyond your control. We'd be sitting here and having to put things in place that the state would mandate, but all the blame fell on you. And so, again, you just handled it so well. So we appreciate so much what you've done. And you go through a whole career, and then the last 2 years, it couldn't be more intense. But you rose to the occasion like nobody. And we're going to miss you. We very much appreciate all you've done. And I hope you enjoy your retirement. Hope you have great things planned. And I hope you come back here and visit us some more. So, does anybody else? Does Jody, you want to come? I'm going to let Jody say something here.
Thank you so much, Terry. So just a couple of quick things. First is, last week I spent some time with county executives throughout the state of California, and we were debriefing the COVID pandemic and learning lessons and so forth. And through all those discussions, I always knew that we had one of the best public health officers in the state, if not the country. And through all those discussions, I saw a lot of examples of just how important and how meaningful your contributions were here in Stanislaus County. And it really was the way in which you worked with the community throughout the process, as well as with this board and other policymakers throughout our county. I often joke, I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again the last time. During that first year of COVID, I spoke with Dr. V more than I did my wife. And we live in the same house, by the way. We're not divorced or anything like that. But we just spent that much time talking and trying to work on really, really difficult things. And there was never a Sunday, no matter what time it was, that if I reached out, she didn't respond very quickly. And I knew she was working 7 days per week like many other folks were. But truly the spotlight that you were under and the difficulty and stress that you endured, I'll be forever grateful for how you handled that and for the very, very personal way in which you tried to support those around you when we all knew that you had the toughest task at hand. So I'm forever grateful for your service here in Stanislaus County. And thank you so much for wanting to be our public health officer and stick all the way through some really, really difficult times. Appreciate that very, very much. And now we have Vito as well as a clock.
Hi. Dr. V, I can come up with one word: spectacular. You are spectacular. It is, our public health officer is a very important position, flies under the radar until a pandemic hits. You deal with communicable diseases, diabetes rates, obesity, the health of the public, and then a pandemic hits. And I don't know of anyone who had trained their entire lives as an infectious disease doctor that was more prepared in California than Dr. V. We all had our opinions. I think that was pretty clear with what the chairman said. But in the end, there's only one expert out of all of us, and so we had to go with the expertise. And it was a difficult job. Sometimes I think we have a difficult job. Sometimes, but your job has been difficult from all the way from day one. And just hearing what Marianne had to say about your teaching component, your advocacy, I hear through the CSAC and the state organization, you're very well respected. People listen to you. You're even-keeled, even-tempered. You understand the business component. So we are so lucky, and I feel very lucky to have known you. And hopefully we're not going to be strangers, but this has just been a wild ride. But thank goodness that Stanislaus County had the ability and that you wanted to come here, because you made us a better place, no doubt. Appreciate it.
Okay, it's your turn. We're going to let you talk a little bit here.
Okay, wow. First of all, I thank you all for really kind words. I didn't know I did that well. I think you should hire that person next time. I came here and wanted to be the health officer and thought we'd really make some progress towards improving the health of the county, and I hope we really did. The pandemic came, after I'd only been here like 2.5 years, and that's just really what all the work has been like for about the last half of the time I was here. The pandemic was extraordinarily difficult. I think everybody recognizes that. Everybody had difficulty in so many different ways. It was, from my standpoint, so hard because you had to just keep moving and making decisions when you had like just this little smidgen of data and you had to just kind of extrapolate from other things. And sometimes you could extrapolate correctly and sometimes you couldn't. You know, this virus didn't really act like our previous coronaviruses, which you were using to make decisions. It acted more like a flu. So it was very rapidly changing with the information we got, and I just really thank everybody for staying with it and understanding how fast things moved and how fast the information changed, and you know, sticking with us as we tried to change recommendations to keep up with the knowledge and do the best we could to protect everybody and keep everybody healthy and moving forward. So I really do thank Stanislaus County for hiring me. That was a good decision, at least for me. Hopefully for you too. And I really, really enjoyed my time here. And I am very sad to leave. And, you know, I wish you all the best, and I won't be a stranger. I'll come back and visit. And anybody can come visit me too. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. And here's the clock. We'll give you a clock, and you gotta know why that we always give a clock, because you should be not looking at the clock anymore. So anyway, that's for you. So thank you for all you've done.
No more COVID, so we can get closer.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll move on now to our public comment portion of the meeting. And this is the time when anyone can come up and speak about anything, in particular things that are not on the agenda. If you have an item on the agenda you want to speak about, you can state that specifically on your little public comment form. But what we ask is everybody speak for no more than 5 minutes so we can get through everybody here. And we've got a bunch of comment cards here, and even if you didn't fill out a card, you can still speak after we've gone through all the cards if you decide you want to speak while you're sitting there. So we're going to start off with our first one here, Joseph Monteroso. Mr. Monteroso, good morning. How are you?
I'm okay. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Is that correct position now?
Whatever, yeah, we can hear you perfect there.
Well, we finally got the answers from your council. Last day, last hour. That 60 days they kept us exposed that they didn't have to. While I'm on that subject, the sheriff has commented to me that I need to contact Thomas for any sheriff issues. I don't know why. Can't reach Thomas anytime. So maybe you can give me your cell phone and I can call you when there's a problem. I've only given you a couple of sheets of paper this time. I don't know if you guys even read this stuff, but it's important. I gave you a copy of the lawsuit, maybe, and it's 14 pages. And I've also got a request here for how much it's costing the county to pay the attorneys in San Francisco over the dirt strip. For God's sakes, guys. Take a look at it. I think you'll find it interesting because the county is actually rejecting some of their own documents. Don't know. Please, take a few minutes and read it. You'll find it very interesting. Okay, I've already spoken about the sheriff. I sent him an email. He told me to basically go jump in a lake and to call Thomas. He'll take care of everything from the sheriff's office. I don't understand that. I really don't understand that. So if I have litigation with the city, with the county, that now puts me in jeopardy with the use of the sheriff's department. That's what he said. So now, what is that? What do you call that? And I've provided you with his emails. I'm not making this up. I'm not making any of this up. I might actually finish this slightly early. I recently learned, you know the Donaldson family. I've given you tons of information. They threatened to kill me now. So I've told you a long time somebody's going to get hurt. I hope it's not me. So I don't know what I'm going to do about that. We've already taken care of ourselves from a protection standpoint. But how long are we going to let this go before it really, really gets out of hand? Over a dirt strip that needs to be closed. I don't understand. What's your goal? Let's say you win. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? I can't speak to Thomas directly, but I'd like to know. What's the goal here? How much money are you going to spend of the taxpayers' money on that dirt strip that needs to be closed? And I don't know. You guys, any of you been an attorney? You study law at all? Take a look at the response. You should be ashamed. It's horrible. Why? Why are we spending all this money? My money too. For what? For what? You guys can't talk for some reason for 5 minutes during the day. We put together our list of depositions, and I guess we'll be talking soon. Why? Why? You don't want me here any more than I want to be here. Get out. Walk off. You got an exit. Take it. What's the point of staying in conflict with me over this road? I think that's it, guys. I think,
Mr. Chair.
I think it's just a reckless spending of money that A, you don't have, and B, there are other better uses for it than spending a lot of money with people in San Francisco, the attorneys in San Francisco. Do you guys approve those decisions before they get out of here? If Thomas wants to use somebody, do you have to approve it before and get a budget from it? Those guys are not cheap. Well, take care of yourselves.
Thank you, Mr. Monterosso. Vito?
Mr. Monterosso, just one thing. If it's an emergency, dial 911, because I read the email that the sheriff had sent you, and it just talks about litigation, and please contact county council with your concerns. If there's a dangerous situation, you dial 911 like everyone else, deputies will respond. It doesn't, this has to do with concerns with...
I appreciate that. It's certainly a comfort for my family, especially with the threats that now prevail. But why the sheriff would email me such a ludicrous statement that's what I'm saying. It's all getting out of control. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Monterosso. Okay, next up we have Stephen Morrow. Stephen, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the supervisors, Mr. Hayes and Mr. Bowes. Election season is on us, and we all got our sample ballot and the state voter guide. Not the most interesting reading in the world. At times it reads like an accounting textbook. But it's something important that we must do to support our republic form of government, because George Washington, Ben Franklin, James Madison, among others, worked very hard to create this government, and we owe it to them to take the time to prepare, do our homework, and then fill out our ballot and send it in. So it's that season, so we have to do it. Those who win their elections, we can congratulate them. and say, okay, now it's time to roll up our sleeves and get to work to do the people's business. But to those who lose their elections, we must avoid the scourge that is coming across this country where if I lose an election, it must be due to fraud. We have to get away from that. Donna Lindler and her hardworking staff are going to be up all night on next Tuesday counting votes, and they're going to do it fairly and carefully to give us the best possible results. Because if we talk about fraud in elections, that also dishonors George Washington and the others that created this government, and we just can't have that. So let's have a good election and do your homework, and good luck to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. I have to tell you, I take exception, that hurt, that accounting textbook comment. That was painful. Some of my best reading has been accounting textbooks. Okay, Mr. Donoso, Miguel, good morning. How are you?
Fine, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, it's going to be the position of the coordinator for the race, ethnicity, and diversity and inclusion pretty soon. And it's going to take almost 2 years for that person to bring the policies to the different departments, but at the same time, in the county itself, it don't have the policy in regard to race and ethnicity and diversity, and they're going to be good. It's like having a car without driver. The second issue, Mr. Chairman, is the workforce development and the public work are not being working together in regard to create more jobs, specific the apprenticeship and the training to have a better working relation for the next 2 years or 3 years in regard to the over $100 million they're going to be for the infrastructure area in regard to the different package of the county. But I think the public work and the working for development and the union have to work together to bring more good jobs, the so-called good job, because he said only 13% have a good job in this county, and especially is somebody going to make 28 or a salary to work in this county. And don't forget, Mr. Chairman, the Executive Order 13985 that's important to be implemented in this county and are right now still not implemented. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Miguel. Okay, next up I have Ramon Rodriguez. Ramon, how are you?
I'm good. And you?
I'm good, thank you.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Dr. V for her contribution for the county for the past 2.5 years, almost 2.5 years, especially with the pandemic. In a time where a lot of public health officers right across the country were threatened by people who want to reopen and everything, believe in misinformation, Dr. V never gave up. She stood by still, and she's tough as nails. And she was still, she's still on the job, even though a lot of people are impatient and threatening her and all this, the wire trolls going on. She never gave up, and she did really good service that saved countless lives in the county throughout the 2 years in the pandemic. And thanks to her, a lot of lives are safe and things are getting back to normal, but we still got a lot of challenges. And another thing about this, we still have homeless situation out in the county. I read in an article in Modesto B that there's even caves in the river. How are we going to start humanely bringing homeless people to housing? First of all, the old courthouse, which the new courthouse is under construction, that old courthouse in downtown Modesto should be a home for the homeless. Transitional homeless, like home for the homeless, so they'll give a lot of services that they need to transition to permanent housing. We should look into that, and the old courthouse and the old jail should be a housing for the homeless, and that should be included in a future agenda someday once the new courthouse is open. And another thing, the last council, the last board meeting last Tuesday? You have certain people who are speaking about this so-called new state of California. I watched the whole video, and it was like nonsense. They've been complaining about so-called illegal immigrants, with their xenophobia, and also they were talking about protecting the children against drag queens and all this stuff, and then using Christian nationalism. They're wasting your time, they're wasting the public's time, and they're spewing out this conspiracy theory nonsense. We just know what happened to Nancy Pelosi's husband. He's been attacked by a person who's believing in conspiracy theories, and that's what's happening around our country. A lot of public officials are facing countless threats every day. And I'm speaking of that because one of the speakers, Melinda Mason, she's involved in the Straight Pride Hate Fest. And every year when there's a Straight Pride Hate Fest, the community stand up against hate, and we shut it down. And we tell these hate mongers that their hate is not welcome. And every year, they're becoming more emboldened with their bigotry. And it's putting a lot of LGBTQ folks, a lot of people of color, women, everyone in danger because they're spreading their hate wrapped in religion. This gotta stop because I'm getting tired of seeing hate going around, spreading like wildfire around our community. And last thing I want to know, this Modesto police officer, Dustin Espinosa, he beat up a community member in February of last year. And I've read another interesting thing about this officer is that he was also involved in another beating back in 2019. And I've read it from a case text, and it's labeled Gonzalez v. City of Modesto Police Department, and guess who's the defendant is? Officer Dustin Espinosa. And he did the same thing what he did with Alonso Nunes. He beat the plaintiff's brother, knocked him out, arrested him using a lot of force that's not legal anymore, and he also threatened arresting the plaintiff as she was filming, which she has every right to film police interaction, and he took that as offense and he arrested her. And luckily that lawsuit is going on because the Modesto police was denied by the courts. And also, I talked with Alonso's sister the other day. The private investigator came and was asking if what is their opinion with Officer Espinosa. She thought it was about Alonso's case until he told her that the same officer beat another person. And back in the beginning, I wrote this to DA Flanagan about this officer's behavior, which evidently I warned a couple of times that this behavior is going to lead to more incident. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Ramon. Thanks for coming down. Okay, next up we have Deanna Washington. Deanna, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, good morning. I'm not going to take up a lot of your time this morning, but I just wanted to make a few observations. The first one is a couple of weeks ago, and by the way, I like the fact that you've employed park rangers. I didn't know about that before until something happened recently. I like the idea of the park rangers. I live by what was called Dan Millis Park, but it's now Martin Luther King Park. It'll take me a little bit to get used to that change. However, when the park rangers rousted about the homeless that keeps plaguing the park, they're not just plaguing the park, they're plaguing our neighborhoods too. And when they rousted them about, they ran around the corner and they were at my house. And I thought that that was funny at first. It's funny, but it's not funny when they brought their tents and all of their entourage of garbage and all their entourage of stuff. So yes, of course, as a citizen, I go out and I say, oh, no, you don't. And We had a conversation. I was able to dialogue with them. Yes, I did say, when I come back here, you better not be here. And I mean that. When I say that, it is not hurtful to the homeless people. It is me as a citizen saying, you can't reside here though. Because when you do that, you bring garbage, you're peeing, and there's a difference between dog pee and people pee. And upon my conversating with these couple of individuals, it led me to come downtown to see about what's being offered for the homeless. I know it's a problem. However, I take offense to those cities that give these people a one-way ticket to Modesto. We have our own people to look out for. We have our own homeless. And now we're getting homeless from other places. I like the fact that downtown responded immediately and they came and rectified the situation. I'm a forceful kind of lady, and I don't bow down, and I keep at it. I know, Terry, you know it. But what I like is that when I'm coming downtown for answers and for help, you have been diligent in assisting, and I appreciate that. You don't always get told that, but I appreciate the way that you're trying to respond to some very complex and difficult situations. I would like to see us still looking for options in helping these folks. Some of them, true, they don't want to be helped. You're offering something and they don't want to be helped because they want to stay in whatever they're rooted to. But at least we're offering it. What I didn't, well, I guess what I took a certain way was when they said they felt safe. I don't know how to take they felt safe come and run into my house. But I guess that's a compliment. But in another way, it made me worried. And for me coming downtown, my prize was a big bag of adult diapers that someone had urinated in. And it was huge. And I guess that was their way of telling me that they were upset at my remedy. What they're needing to understand is that the community is not saying we don't want to help you, but we're saying that you cannot behave this way, though. And I also wanted to make a comment about the meetings that we're having over the Muni problem. I call it a problem because we've got this land that's historic to our area. I understand the growth of the city. I understand you get so much funds, et cetera, and you're needing to figure out what to do with them. But I want to implore you to have accountability for what I call the investors. What kind of investors are we looking at? And are these investors going to care about our community and what we have going on here? Yes, I've lived a lot of places, but I came home. I'm a country girl and I came home. And I love home. I love our community. But in loving your community, you have to stand up and take care of it, and accountability. So I'd like to look at those investors and see who they are, and if they're really for the growth of our area. A lot of people are against having affordable housing over there. We want more conversation about what that affordable housing is going to be if you choose to do that. But a lot of people want you to consider us in the community before you make those decisions. There's a lot of people upset right now. What I don't want to see is what happened in Oakland. You have people being told to sell your property here. But once they sell their property there at a lesser value of what they really could have got it for, and then they move somewhere else, they are being priced out of the American dream, so to speak. We have people here that have been here all their lives and they can't even afford the houses that are here. And we have people from the outside coming. It's not that we're saying we don't like you, we don't want you, but what is it that you bring here? And then the people that we cut out that have been here all their lives. It's just a consideration. all money is not good money. It isn't. And I have investors calling me. In 2 days, I had 76 calls. And it is threatening to me when someone takes a picture of my property and sends it to me. And then they want to kind of hackle me on paper, hackle me on the phone. No, it's not for sale. It was not listed, and it's not for sale. And so if you keep calling me, stop wasting your paper and stop wasting your dime. And I can't implore you enough to know that these investors, the tactics that they're taking, it is threatening. And a few times, I looked them up, and I'm dogmatic. I will find you. Knock it off, is what I say.
I'm going to get in trouble because I'm letting you go too long.
I know, sir, but I had to say that.
Well, I appreciate it.
People that are doing this, that's invasive to us, and it is threatening.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming down, Deanna. Thank you. And just so you know, the park rangers is a City of Modesto thing. Those park rangers, I don't want to take credit where we don't. That's something the City of Modesto is doing, the park rangers. So for what that's worth, just so you'll know that.
We'll talk later.
Okay, yeah, call me. Okay, thank you. Okay, next up, we have Astrid Zinica. Astrid, good morning. How are you?
Morning. I'm all right, hanging in there.
Good.
Well, good morning, Board of Supervisors. I'm here one more week again in regards to the negotiations with the United Domestic Workers and Home Supportive Service Workers. And for those in this room that don't know, I am a home care provider for my adult child, Manny, who has autism, intellectual disabilities, and epilepsy. And it's real work. And I would hope that at the end of this week, when we come back to the table, that you guys have taken a deep dive and a look and will come to the table with something that isn't nickels and dimes. You know, each week I come here and I speak in regards to how this county should be looking at investing in this workforce. You know, we have your constituents actually are those who need the care and those that are providing the care. And I've said it time and time again, there's nearly 6,000 home care workers. There's another 7,000 plus recipients. That is a whole lot of people who are not receiving care in this county. And if we aren't investing in this workforce and making it attractive, you're going to see people in hospitals, you're going to see people dying. And it is your responsibilities to protect your constituents and the people of your community. You know, I've brought up the 2030 plan and how you guys want to get, you know, all these families that are living in poverty up to good wage, good jobs, and what a good job would look like. And yet you guys don't want to set the bar, set the standard for what the rest of the state should be doing for home care workers. Instead, you'd rather be down here or looking at what other counties are doing. Who cares about other counties? You guys should want to be the golden county for doing right by home care workers and giving them livable wages and giving them benefits. You know, we fight year and year and year, again and again, to make sure that this program is protected on the state level, on the federal level, and then we have to fight at the county just to be recognized and respected as any other worker. When we are an essential workforce, and yet we had to fight for that too. We had to fight to get the same recognition as other workers. When during a pandemic, we were keeping your community's most vulnerable, the elderly and the disabled, safe in their homes. And many of us putting ourselves at risk every day. I had one member that was going from client to client, and in between her clients, she would change her clothes. She'd stop somewhere and change her clothes and clean up before she went to the next client, so she didn't carry something potentially to the next one. That's the type of dedication there is in this community. And yet we don't want to respect that and pay them as much as an In-N-Out burger worker is making. That's a shame. I hope today when you guys go into closed session that you will look beyond whatever numbers are being thrown at you and look into your hearts and the fact that these workers are your constituents. These workers are the people that you took an oath of office to protect and provide good on, and you'll do what's right. Thank you.
Thanks, Esther. Okay, next up we have Christy Ramos. Christy Ramos. Christy, how are you?
Hello. This is my first time ever speaking or actually standing on a podium, so my first time. About 15 years ago, I was a IHSS provider for my grandmother. She passed away. I am now an IHSS provider for my daughter. She is 9 years old and she is autistic and nonverbal. I work very hard to keep her healthy and safe and clean, and it's a lot of work. Being an IHSS provider, we do a lot for our clients, and we do deserve a fair wage. It is, like she said, that an In-N-Out Burger employee makes more than we do. And dental is also so very important. I would love to go get my teeth fixed, but I can't because I can't afford it. I do ask that you take in consideration to please help us get the wage that we really deserve to get, and because we work really hard and we care so much for our clients, we really do, and especially my daughter. You know, there's no one out there that can take care of her the way I can. I'm not really great at this. I just ask that you take in consideration to please give us the wage that we deserve, because we all work very hard to make sure that everyone is safe and taken care of the way they should be. So thank you.
Thank you, Christy.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have John Adams. John Adams? John, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning to all of you. We've been coming up here for a long time, trying to get these raises going. I don't need to tell you about McDonald's making $16 an hour. The governor's supposedly passing a bill that all fast food workers making $22 an hour. We're not after $22 an hour. We're asking you to go back in your chambers and decide in your hearts what you feel that we deserve. Not relying on staff to tell you things or anybody else to tell you things. We're asking you to go back to your chamber and really consider what we do. That's all we're asking for. I mean, one day you're going to have somebody that's going to need IHSS. Another thing, if war broke out, most of us here are pretty capable of running things. I can run just about every machine there is, from suction, I do stool removal, I do catheterization, I do feeding tube machines. We're not just people that are unqualified or unskillful. The jobs we do are needed. And I know you guys hear it from us all the time, so I'm not going to take up all your time, but when you go back to your chambers, just really put it in your heart. Think about what would you want to get paid. Another thing, nurses at Doctors Hospital, they're working 24-hour shifts. 24-hour shifts. Would you want somebody working on you that was working 24-hour shifts? Second of all, we don't have the option to work overtime. We're limited to the overtime. Even though the bills are going up, we're limited. And some of us can't go out and get a second job because the person we take care of requires 24-hour care. So I'm just letting you know, and I'm not going to waste your time, and I'm not going to sit here and just try to blow smoke at you guys, but I hope you guys really consider when you go back in your chambers, we deserve a raise. I mean, I know it's a budget decision, but We really deserve a raise. All right, that's all I have to say.
Thanks, John. Okay, next up I have Evelyn, I can't read the last name. Evelyn. Landros? There we go. Thank you. Evelyn, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good, thank you. I did speak probably a few weeks back. I am here still for the same thing. I am born here, and as a young child was Mexicoan back until we decided to stay. Maybe when I was in second grade, I learned English. I am first generation here, and if I wasn't lucky enough to have a couple next door that helped us go through a lot of the struggles when we were younger, I wouldn't be who I am today. I would like to say that there's a lot of things that Mexican people, I want to say that I want to stand for them because I am Mexican and I do come from Mexico, but those things are just not there. Affordable housing is one of them. We also work in the fields, and it's hard, it's hot, and it's definitely not an easy job doing field work. And I have never seen my mom get anything for doing any of the work that she has ever done. I do feel that it's important to put food on people's tables, and it's actually a really giving job. So, you know, God sees it as a good thing. It is good money coming to you when you're doing that for other people. Not a lot of people want to do that job, and I do feel the benefits should be something that they are given. Not only that, but raises, even bathrooms, I think, is just something that was just given, which is absolutely ridiculous. You couldn't even use a restroom when you're at work. And, you know, now I think even, hey, you worked in the fields 20 years, give them a visa. They can go back and forth to Mexico and visit their family, because some people come and they choose to not leave, not because they don't want to, but because if they leave, they'd have to cross the borders again. And it's $14,000 across the border. I don't know if you know how much it is, or going through the desert alone, through a coyote. Somebody, you're risking your life, you're risking other people's lives, and it's just a hard life to have. And everybody's just trying to make it a best, you know, better than what they had, and even at home it's better sometimes. So yeah, that is definitely something I came to fight for again. Also, housing is one of them, affordable housing. I see all these buildings coming up in Modesto, but I don't really see any housing that is, I want to say, middle class, even lower class housing, apartments, something like that. Everything is just so skyrocketing high right now that it shouldn't even be that high. Minimum wage does need to go up, and that includes for the IHSS workers. They really don't get good enough pay. I don't think anybody does. Minimum wage right now is supposed to be $22 an hour, and they're getting paid $13, $15. You know, that's just, it's not even, I don't know, right? Make it right. We just want everybody to have a good opportunity, not only Mexican people, but all people. I do like diversity, and I like helping others, and it's something that I also hope that you have in your hearts and want to stand up for too. Para la raza. Thank you.
Thanks, Evelyn. Next up, we have Blanca Rivera. Blanca, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Fine, thank you. I'm here representing, I'm also an IHS provider, and like Dr. V, she did her job to make this a safe community. We also do our job to make this a safe community. We take care of people that if we didn't, they would be in institution, they would be homeless. So we're helping keeping these people safe, reducing the number of homeless people. We're doing our part. And all we ask for is a livable wage. Now, most of you would say, well, you're taking care of your family. Well, if we didn't take care of the family, you would have to take care of them. And I don't see any of you willing to change a diaper of an adult. Okay? You guys got where you got because of your kindness and compassion. So that's what we're asking you now, is to have compassion on us who are doing a job that really nobody else wants to do. I mean, and like they say, In-N-Out makes more than we do, yet we contribute just as much as the In-N-Out workers, and maybe even more. When we're doing our job to keep this a safe community by helping these people out, by providing help for these people who might otherwise be homeless out on the street, which is what you guys don't want. You don't want that. You don't want people out more homeless. You don't want people committing crime because they don't have the mentality to think it out right. We're taking care of these people. We're taking care of people that, in many ways, don't cause you more problems. But all we're asking in return is a livable wage, because we're not getting rich doing this, okay? We don't own a big house with swimming pools, okay? Most of us don't. I don't know if any of us does. Anyway, and that's what I'm trying to say. I'm asking you to think about this very carefully. And I know you guys got budget. We all have budgets. Even us that we work with, we have to budget our money so we can make it all through the end of the month. All of us does. What we're asking you is to help give us a livable wage so we can at least afford to live in Modesto and take care of these people. Understand that money must get, we have to argue, come over here and negotiate with you for a wage. At the same time, we have to negotiate with the state for the hours. So we have two battles. With you guys for the wage, and then we have the battle with IHS's state for the hours, because sometimes they even fight us for the hours. We have a battle with them for the hours because they don't want to give us the hours that are necessary to take care of these people, to take care of my client, or to take care of our children, our clients, period. So all we're asking is to look at us, respect us, like we are expected to respect you guys. We're asking the same thing. And I'm sorry I'm putting you to sleep, Jody Hayes. I really am sorry for putting you to sleep.
Nobody's
Maybe
going
you
to
should have
sleep
taken
up
more.
here.
Maybe you should have slept more. I live on 3 or 4 hours. I live on 4 or 5 hours sleep. So you know what? I can do it. But I apologize if I put you to sleep.
No, you didn't put, you just direct your comments towards me, please, and
Okay,
you're not putting
okay,
anybody to
well,
sleep up here. We're all listening to you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Blanca.
Bye.
Okay, next up we have Elvia Solorio. Solorio? Elvia?
And sorry about that, Blanca. It was a really late night for me, and I'm trying to get my caffeine to kick in here my best I can. Thank you.
Elvia? Do we have Elvia?
No, she's not. I don't think she's here, but is it okay if I talk if I need to go?
Sure, come on up. Just give us, yeah. Okay. That's okay, yeah.
I just had to go, and
Just
I
give
wanted
us-
to say something, though,
You're-
before I go. And this, I'm Carolyn Vargas.
Perfect. Thanks,
This is
Carolyn.
Wilfredo Vargas. We are both providers. And, yes, he is. Thank God for ex-husbands that, unfortunately, I had my boyfriend, he passed away. He was also a provider, also helped me with my son who's disabled. And this job is very important. This job is very important to us, and not only to keep, our clients safe. And I've done this job for many years. I also have not got paid for helping the lady across the street that she said she was going to enroll me for the program. And unfortunately, she got ill, she got sick, she passed away. I mean, I've done this job for many years. I have not got paid, but I've done this with my heart. So, taking care of people that, changing their diapers, have been thrown up on, feces. I mean, they've, had dementia. The lady had dementia. She would take everything out of her cupboards. It would be all, when I get there, she was trying to cook something, and it was a mess. When she used to make the best tamales back in the day. But, I'm just saying that this is important for us, that we get, to be part of, with the job that we do, to be appreciated of what we do for others, and I want you guys to have an understanding about that. We work 24 hours, and sometimes we have to protect our client. Like, I had to go ahead and protect somebody that was disabled, that he had schizophrenic, and they were trying to beat him up. And I had to tell him, hey, this guy is disabled. You guys can't beat this guy up. I had to stick up for people out there in the streets as well. I mean, all we want is to be, we sought, get also the benefits, you know. I mean, we deserve, you know, a living wage. We deserve, you know, benefits, mental, dental. We deserve, you know, insurance. Anything happens to us, Lord forbid, you know, we wouldn't have the money, you know, to go ahead and do a burial for Mr. Vargas or whatever, you know. I mean, it's just, or for myself, you know. I mean, I have other children, you know, I have other people that I take care of as well, you know, my elderly parents. I'm sure you guys have parents probably if they're still alive, you know. I mean, what are they worth? What is your family's worth? Ours are worth a lot. So we want you guys to please consider that, you know, with your heart, because we do it out of love. We don't do it for the money.
We work 24/7 for our child. Our child.
You get that microphone, Alfredo, in front of you if you're going to. Yeah.
For our child, because I fought for him since he was 6 years old, and he is not mentally ill. He's retarded is the word, because he doesn't understand anything. He's 18 years old. He's quadriplegic. He's in a wheelchair. We went through everything in Sacramento, everywhere, because we had to get him operated from his legs.
Because he's quadriplegic.
Quadriplegic. So all the work that we do there, we're not getting compensated. For Christ's sake, Connecticut's paying $18.50 to $20 to $22 an hour. How come we're, as a state in California, that pays too much in taxes, and we have homeless on the street, and then the way we're working, it makes me very angry. Just think about it. And I've traveled, because I don't only lived here. I have a son that worked at Memorial Hospital who knows to care. One of your parents or one of your family members when COVID came around. Who knows? We put our risk, you know, and we're not even getting the money we should be getting. So think about it. You know, if you have a son like we have, that I took this task because I wanted to, because I wanted to do something for change. So I expect that you guys are going to do the right thing for us. We deserve it. We're not asking for handouts. And I'm an American, born in North New Jersey, okay? And so I deserve that we could be heard clearly that we need this. We need it. We're not just asking for handouts. We need it. It's a lot of work.
We all do it. We're all here. We all do it for love. We all do it for compassion, because we care for other people. People that we don't even know, people that are fragile, people who are elderly or disabled. We're all here because we care. And hopefully that you guys consider this. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alfredo. Thank you guys both. Okay, next up we have Ricardo Cervantes.
Alvina is here.
Okay, come on up then. Elvia.
I'm going to translate what she needs to say.
Very good. Alvino, good morning. Go ahead.
So she says the pay isn't enough. And the hours aren't enough either. The person she takes care of is blind. And she has gone to ask for help, but nobody is able to help her when she's working. And hopefully you're able to help so it is better for them to work when they are working. And that's everything.
Gracias. Gracias, Elvia. Thank you very much. Okay, now Ricardo Cervantes. Is Ricardo here? Okay, we'll move on. Is that Ricardo coming? Okay. Ricardo, good morning. How are you?
Morning, how are you doing?
Good, thank you.
I'm here representing my wife, Christina Cervantes. We have a daughter that was born with cerebral palsy. My wife works very hard with her. She has to do feed her. When she cooks, my daughter knows how to pick up a spoon and eat, and she tells you when she's hungry, but she's completely disabled because she can't get up to feed herself. She needs help to go to the restroom, to shower her. My wife has to work very hard. She's fully disabled because of the fact that she is in a wheelchair. We have to help her, lift her up, put her in the chair, or help her, walk her to the. Once she's on the walker, she's okay. But to sit her down, she has to sit her down. When she's done, she needs to lift her up, and it's been hard. I mean, she's 42 years old, and it's hard. So this is the reason we're here to ask for the raise, and hopefully you understand that we need this raise. I'm not a very good talker, I'm sorry.
You're doing great, Ricardo.
But that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thanks, Ricardo.
All
Thanks
right,
for coming
thank
in.
you. You have a good day.
Thank you. You too. Okay, next up we have Sophia Rodriguez. Good morning, Sophia. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Okay, I'll make this short so everybody can speak and nobody falls asleep. Good morning, my name is Sophia. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself. I was an RCA back in 2007, full-time worker, more than 40 hours a week, very hard work for the postal office. I had to quit back in 2017 because my mother got dementia and she had a tumor on her head. That's how I became a provider. I couldn't find anybody to take care of her, so I put myself in that spot. I didn't know what I was getting into. Now I know. I was raised to take care of my family, but we're just not talking about family members. I also met somebody while my mom was in the hospital. I met a second person that needed a provider, and when I was going through my paperwork, he asked me if I wanted to be part of his hours and help him out for a little bit and help out my mom. So I said, well, I'll have enough time so I can do my mom and then I'll do him. Yeah, I'll do it, right? Well, I did so. Now I have two clients, which is my mom. She lives in my house. She lives out of a 700 Social Security that wouldn't be enough for her to be at any place. She wouldn't be able to have a home, so she lives with me. And technically, I'm the provider in the house. I'm a single mom, 3 kids, and my mom. Like I said, most of us are family members, and people truly need to be compensated. I can see the point of view that you guys have, because what you guys see is that we are family, so we are supposed to provide care for our family, because they're our family, right? So the low pay, it's leading to a long-term crisis of alarming proportions. How do I know this? I've been in the hospitals. From the hospitals, I've been with social workers. I've been all over the place. And I can see the long-term cares that have no either place, beds, or a placement for someone that it's either temporary as a care a patient for a long-term or a short-term. So that's one thing. Our low pay and no benefits puts us in a position where we don't really want to do this. We are working, but I wouldn't see other people applying to this job to take care of someone for this pay. Like I said, family members are often the ones providing the necessary care, leading to devaluing of the service. So they don't want to pay us because we are family members. That's the reason. There's no other reason. I found the reason. They don't want to pay us because we are family members. Unfortunately, that's what I found out. And some county boards of supervisors have expressed this in the past. Para los que no entienden, les estoy diciendo que lo que encontré o definitivamente tuve la experiencia de saber es que ellos no nos pagan porque nosotros somos familia. Nosotros estamos cuidando de nuestra propia familia y ellos creen que ahorita somos hasta suertudos por recibir un pago. So I think that's the way everybody sees it. Like, you guys see us as we are lucky to get pay, very lucky, even though we are their own family members. This job, it's very stressful. The job requirements are, if you go into IHSS and just look for where it says job posting, look at the requirements. They do a background check. You are supposed to be in a good standing position in order to be a caregiver. I think more than nurse. When a nurse comes out, they only need a certificate. Okay, so this is a discourage for people to consider employment. I don't see anybody going into applying for IHSS. I also have other people that has called me and asked me if I could provide services for them because they're being approved and they are just waiting for a recipient. And they've been waiting for months, sometimes more than a year. They have to reapply again. And they can find nobody. Sorry, that's all. That's all I have to say.
Okay,
Thank you.
Sophia, thank you for coming up. Okay, next up I have Shantu Lim. Am I saying that right? Shantu? Okay, I don't see Shantu. Okay, and then next I have Alejandro Pineda. Alejandra.
She needs to translate.
Perfect, okay. Am I saying it? Is it Alejandra? Okay, very good. Good morning, how are you?
Bien. Good, thank you.
Pues buenos días, nomás yo quiero pedir como un aumento de sueldo porque pues ahorita lo que nos están pagando pues no, la verdad no alcanza y
Good morning, everyone. I'm here because I would like to ask for a raise on my wages because right now I cannot afford certain things on my own.
Cada mes estamos, o yo pues, cruzando los dedos para ver si este mes sí alcanza y pues la verdad no alcanza. No puedo ir como a trabajar a otro lado porque cuido a mi sobrino.
Every month I'm crossing my fingers because I want to know if I'm going to make it up to the end of the month.
Y pues él es como, tiene 33 años, pero es como un bebé. Necesita todo el cuidado como un bebé, darle comer a la boca.
¿Es su sobrino?
Sí.
Okay. I take care of my nephew. He's 36 years old. ¿Qué condición tiene?
Él no puede hablar, no puede comer, no puede bañarse. No, sí.
He is bedridden and he needs to be fed. He needs to be clean. He needs help to change him on diapers.
Y pues no me alcanza, la verdad. El sueldo estoy como todos los meses bien estresada.
She says it's very stressful to live on the wages that she's on right now.
Es todo.
And that's
Gracias.
all. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Thank you for coming down.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's the last speaker card I have for just the public comment. Is there anybody else that'd like to come up and speak before? Come on down. Good morning.
Was he going to come up?
No, that's okay. You go ahead.
Okay.
He'll go next.
Della Perales here again, looking to find if we can get a wage increase. And I asked the question, why don't you care about home care providers? Why don't you care about home care providers? I know it's a rhetorical question, so I will answer it for you. You don't. The bottom line is you don't. I don't know how many of you have lost a grandparent or a parent, and they've been put in a facility. I don't know. I'm sure one of you has a grandparent that passed away in a facility. I'm just hoping that your children don't put you in a facility, because if they do, then they will have learned the lesson very well. This is what we do with our elderly. We warehouse them because we just don't care about the elderly. I may have to warehouse my loved one, but not before I can't do it anymore. Not before I can't do it anymore. I'm in my 70s, and I will keep on doing it as long as I'm able. I'm not going to put her in a rest home. So I just hope that your loved ones don't put you in a rest home where you can see out of sight, out of mind, you don't care. This is not the world I created. I didn't create this world, but I'm taking care of her. My grandson sustained an accident when he was 17. This young man played golf. He played the piano. He was like your grandchildren, like your sons and your daughters. But he had an accident, and it rendered him in a wheelchair and nonverbal. And it's not the world we created, but it happened. And it can happen in any one of your lives. It can be, and you say, well, these people, they get Social Security, and this is just a little bit of pocket change for them, this extra money. Well, many of you are close to Social Security, and you're still going to get money from your law and practice, real estate business, farming. That's just extra money, but we're just asking for a little bit more. Most of these people just get Social Security, very minimal amount, but with the rising cost of food, transportation, housing, gasoline, and heating, everything else that goes along with that, it doesn't go very far. It doesn't go very far. So I'm asking again, you know, peel back the layers maybe and see what would it be like to see, you know, someone with a little bit more help. Because when your loved one goes into a rest home, the last person they're going to see is that guy mopping that room. And your loved one's going to be with their bright eyes like, I want to talk, I need help, screaming at them. But that person's just going to move along, just mopping along. That might be the last person they see, instead of someone at home holding their hand and loving that person. Many of you can just do that. I don't understand how that happens. I don't understand it. How can you put your loved ones away? But it happens. This job is not up for everybody. But at least respect the ones that do take care of their loved ones. It's not a requirement. No law says we have to, but we do. So peel back that layers that's got your heart just so wrapped up that you don't care about us. Peel it back a little bit and take a deep dive. And maybe you'll find some compassion and some empathy. Thank you.
Thank you, Della. Okay, sir, come on up. Good morning, how are you?
Good morning, I'm fine. I'm speaking for my son,
Can I get you just to give your name for us?
Wayne Junso.
Okay, thanks,
I'm
Wayne.
speaking for my son, Stephen Junso. He was going to come today, but last night he was trick-or-treating with my grandsons in a wheelchair because he severed his spine 9 years ago. But a trick-or-treater dropped her bag of candy all over the sidewalk. He reached over to help her. He has no core muscle. He has no control of his bladder, his poo-poo, and my wife said, use the proper word instead of another word. Anyway, he fell out of his wheelchair because he has no power in his core. Well, he skinned his knees, skinned his elbows, still helped her, but he didn't want to come today because he was kind of hurting. Not just his skins, but when he jars his back, his legs start jumping all over the place, and he didn't want to fall out here. So I'm here for him. He's not asking for the money. What he's asking for is a little respect for me and all the caregivers. I'm sure there'd be a lot more here if they had enough money to pay for the gas now. But I think they're using that gas money to go help their clients, or their people they're taking care of. I think there'd be more here, but I'm sure many of them are now taking care of the people they're taking care of. So last time we were fighting for a raise, I gave the supervisors a whole list of things that my son goes through every day and asked you to put yourself in a wheelchair for one day. Try to get into buildings, in and out of your car. You go into a store and you poop yourself. That's pretty damn embarrassing, isn't it? When's the last time you might have fallen out of a stool or a chair and had to get yourself up because of a physical thing? We don't experience that. I don't experience that. I have a balance problem, but I don't, I fall down, but I get up. He can't get up. He was an entertainer. He was a dancer. He doesn't at all anymore. His legs used to be strong, muscles. Now they're thin. They're like just bone. It hurts me. I wish it would maybe hurt you guys a little bit more. We're not asking for the world. We're asking for another day or two. Salary. It's not going to break the county. It's not going to break the county. I want you to go to your meetings and really dig down into your heart. I know you all have hearts. I know you care for people. I know that. Let's see a little of it today. My son said, Dad, I'm hoping I don't have to come down next week because we want to hear from the UDW that you guys have given just a little bit what we're asking for. Thank you.
Thanks, Wayne. Okay, is there anybody else for public comment?
Maybe one more?
No? I think there's somebody back here that would like to, sorry, we... Good morning.
Buenos días.
Good morning.
Mi nombre es Berta Amaya.
Her name is Bertha Amaya.
Y la razón que yo entiendo de estar aquí es porque queremos un aumento en nuestro sueldo.
And the reason she understands why we're here is because we want a raise in the money that they're being paid.
Ya. Yo entiendo que cuando uno pide un aumento es porque está haciendo bien las cosas.
She says she understands that whenever somebody gets a raise, it's because they're doing a good job in the job that they're doing.
Igualmente yo pienso ustedes que están aquí, cuando ustedes piden un aumento o les dan un aumento, es porque están haciendo bien su trabajo.
And the same is for you. She understands that whenever you do get a raise, it's known as to you're getting a raise because you're doing a good job here.
Sí, y la razón que yo veo es que todos están dando el motivo por el cual están pidiendo un aumento, porque ellos están haciendo bien su trabajo. Yo cuido a mi mamá y aquí tengo a mi mamá conmigo y ella está bien. Por eso es la razón por la cual yo pido un aumento, porque estoy haciendo bien mi trabajo.
So she understands why she's here now today. She said that it's because she's doing a good job, that's why she's here. She does feel that everybody else feels the same way, that they do a good job at their work, that they do need a raise. She does have her mother here, and she believes she is being owed a raise.
Sí, yo trabajo con mi mamá todos los días. No tengo sábado y domingo de descanso, así como ustedes lo tienen. No tengo, como otra persona dijo, un sueldo extra. Yo tengo a mi esposo y mis hijos y también tengo que compartir con ellos. Pero yo pienso que es justo que ustedes consideren el trabajo que nosotros hacemos, porque es trabajo también.
So she does take care of her mother full-time. She doesn't have Saturday off, Sunday off like you. It's full-time. She has a husband, she has a son, and she wants you to take into consideration the hard work and extra work that she does put in because she also does that.
Creo que es todo lo que tengo que decir por pedir un aumento en mi sueldo.
And she says she thinks that that's all she has to say about the raise that she wants in her job.
Thank you.
Okay, gracias, thank you. Okay, is there anybody else? Yeah, I'm sorry, we have a lot more to do. We can. Is there anybody else? Come on down. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Buenos días. Mi nombre es Azucena Anguiano y yo tengo una razón que quiero exponerles.
Hello, good morning. My name is Azucena Anguiano, and I would like to expose something.
Soy madre soltera, tengo 3 hijos, divorciada por 10 años.
I'm a single mother. I have 3 kids.
Divorciada por 10 años.
And divorced for about 10 years.
Mi hijo mayor tiene 23 años.
My oldest son has 23 years old.
Está en este momento en evaluación por autismo.
He's being evaluated for autism.
En este momento.
At this time.
El de 20 años.
I have another son of 20 years old.
Tiene malformación entrecarnosa intercerebral.
He has
4 malformaciones.
4
malformation cavernosus intercerebral.
Malformations, I don't know how.
Malformation cavernosus intercerebrales causan seizures.
Oh, he has seizures, but it comes on his brain and it's 4. ¿Son
4 malformaciones. 4 malformations intercerebrales causan seizures. Right now he's drinking medicine for get the slow seizures.
So he takes medication for the seizures.
La razón que estoy aquí
The
es
reason that I'm here.
el más pequeño tiene 9 años, tiene síndrome de Down.
The youngest is 9 years old and he has Down syndrome.
Ustedes se preguntarán, ¿cómo es que se pone esta madre a tener tantos hijos con tantas cosas médicas?
She says, she doesn't know how she can be a mother of the 3, and they all have problems.
Problemas médicos con sus hijos. La razón que ni yo sabía que los niños iban a nacer así.
Reasons that she did not know before they were unborn.
El de Down, cuando nació, fue diagnosticado al nacer con síndrome de Down.
The 9-year-old was diagnosed at the time that he was born.
En el embarazo estuvo normal.
During the pregnancy, there was nothing saying about having syndrome.
El de 20 años, a los 10 años fue detectada la malformación.
The one that is 20 years old now, he was diagnosed at the age of 10.
El de 23, en este momento, se está siendo evaluado.
And the 23-year-old, it's still on process of being diagnosed.
La razón que estoy aquí,
The reason that I'm here for,
como madre soltera,
as a single mother,
el único ingreso que hay ahorita en casa es el seguro social del más pequeño de 9 años.
the only income that I have is the one coming from the 9-year-old.
Y calificada por el IHSS por 53 horas al mes.
And I'm a provider for IHSS with only 53 hours a month. 53 horas.
Con eso tengo que sobrevivir al mes para mis 4 hijos, para mis 3 y conmigo 4.
That's what I'm using as an income for my 3 kids and myself.
Mes a mes estoy con la bendición de Dios saliendo con mis gastos.
Every month, I'm just hoping, and I've been blessed that I can do them by the end of the month. I can do the end of the month.
Me cuesta trabajo ponerles comida en la mesa, un techo donde estar.
It takes me a lot to put food on the table and a shelter where to keep them all.
Mis deudas están arriba, mis ingresos están aquí.
My wages are way down low. My income, it's way down low, but my debts are way up high.
Esa es la razón que estoy aquí.
And this is the reason that I'm here
No
for.
quiero lástima. Creo que es justo por mis hijos que vivan una vida lo más estable como niños normales.
She wants to give them a decent life, and she can't afford it.
Son mis hijos,
They're my kids,
pero no soy rica para darles todo.
but I'm not rich, and I gotta work for it.
Gracias por escucharme y espero
Thanks for listening to me, and I hope
que ustedes, así como Dios no me ha abandonado, tampoco lo hagan ustedes que tienen la posibilidad de ayudar a personas que realmente, creo yo, necesitamos, que estamos en una necesidad que no elegimos estar ahí.
I know you guys might have the power just to help us out a little bit. We did not decide to be on this spot. We only want you guys to help us.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Gracias, thank you. Okay, is there anybody else before we close the public comment? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public comment. We're going to move on to our consent calendar. Thank you all for being here. Okay, we'll move on to our consent. We have one item, item B8. Jody, you want to talk about?
Yes, Chairman Withrow and members of the board, we would like to remove item 5B8 from today's consent calendar. We're going to bring this item back at another time after we did a little more work on a couple of issues that came up last minute there.
Okay, very good, thank you. So with the exception of that one, is there any other item anybody from the dais wants to pull? Anybody from the audience want to pull any item from consent? Seeing none, we'll look for a motion.
Motion to approve all items other than item B58.
Second. We have a motion and a second. We also have a public comment here on item 5B3 that you can read online, that will be posted online. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, let's move on. Let's stop for 3 minutes here as everyone abandons the dais, and then we'll move on. That's all right. Okay, we're going to call the meeting back to order here. Thank you for just giving us all a quick little break here. We're going to move on to item 7.1, acceptance of the Stanislaus 2030 Investment Blueprint, Chief Executive Office. And I think that Jody's going to start this off.
Thank you very much, Chairman Withrow and members of the board. We are very, very excited to be having this conversation this morning. This is just the first of several public discussions that we will have on Stanislaus 2030. And we're excited to begin sharing this initiative in the boardroom here and also with the public. I wanted to first start by recognizing two of our board members who served on the executive committee, but even prior to the executive committee, helped with many members of the community think through what it might look like for us to take on a significant broad economic development initiative in our community. And those two board members were Supervisors Withrow and Graywall. So thank you both very much for helping us develop this from the onset, and also your participation on the executive committee. Joining me in today's presentation is Marianne Cannon, Chief Executive Officer with the Stanislaus Community Foundation, as well as Emmanuel or Manny Escamilla, founder of our local communications and engagement firm Debrief. Manny's going to share with you the efforts that we've made to make sure that we did some deep engagement in the community along the way here. We're also joined by many members of our executive committee that participated in this process and provided us leadership. We're going to recognize them at some point here along the way. And for those of you who have not seen this already, the attachment to today's agenda item was about 50-plus pages, but we do have hard copies available in the back of the room. So if any of you would like a hard copy of the Stanislaus 2030 Investment Blueprint, please just stop at the back table there, and we'll make one available for you. Okay, so I always like to kind of start with reminding ourselves the framework upon which we're working here. So this is just a quick reminder that of our board's overall strategy with expenditures of funds with the American Rescue Plan Act. We have 4 different categories identified as well as a reserve. And our economic development job creation category represents about $30 million in ARPA funds that would be available for that category. And Stanislaus 2030 is intended to be the first project coming forward. We're not making any specific recommendations other than just one we'll talk about later related to the expenditures of those funds today. That will come later. But this is kind of the framework upon which we are working, and also wanted to talk about the schedule. So today is our first presentation of Stanislaus 2030 to the Board of Supervisors, but we could have easily gone the entire day just on this topic. We want to make sure that we have ample opportunity to get into the depth of some of the recommendations, and particularly the investment agenda that you're going to get a preview of later today. That is really at the heart of the work for Stanislaus 2030. We have tentatively scheduled a board workshop for December 5th. And at that workshop, we will do a deep dive on the investment agenda itself. So if you have some questions that are specific to some of those investment agenda items, if we're unable to answer them today, we're going to have plenty of opportunity and time to do that deep dive on December 5th. We then anticipate that later in January, our tentative date is January 24th, we will actually return to the board with final recommendations on how much of our ARPA funds we would like to make in investments related to the investment agenda or other matters that the Board of Supervisors would like to prioritize. So we're looking for late January in which to complete that process. And obviously in between there'll be a whole lot of work, receiving feedback from board members, receiving your thoughts and direction on what you've seen so far in this presentation, as well as through our workshop, as well as considering any other options. And then the last thing I wanted to do before we get into the heart of the 2030 effort is to just remind ourselves, how does this fit in our bigger overall efforts in our community? And for this Board of Supervisors, and for the last 8 years, we have supported the Focus on Prevention effort, which is our effort across the entire community to bring all sectors together to work on the biggest issues that we face for long-term change. And for us, those are education, economy, health, housing, and neighborhoods. I'm very excited for the work that Focus on Prevention has done over this last year to organize themselves in a new way. We're very much a part of that, but many other sectors represented there as well. Today's presentation of Stanislaus 2030 is our effort on the economy that supports Focus on Prevention. So I just wanted to do a little shout out there for the FOP effort. And if any of you are not familiar with Focus on Prevention or you'd like to learn more about the work that's being done in some of these other categories, you can visit our website there, focusonprevention.net. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and ask Marion Cannon to go ahead and join us here, and we'll go ahead and get into it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. Board of Supervisors, always a pleasure to present to you. Really excited. I think a year ago, we were here talking about Stanislaus 2030 and our vision. But before we had a vision, we started with a question. And we asked this question well before the pandemic. We went around and asked local leaders, residents, folks that sit on top of systems, elected officials, if Warren Buffett came to Stanislaus County one day and said, I want to invest $500 million or $1 billion, where would we ask him to invest it in a way that has truly transformational scale that helps the lives of residents? And I think we just heard this morning, I'm not, obviously know nothing about the specifics of what's happening with some of the voices we just heard, but it's precisely the fact that there are so many struggling community members in our region that to really think deeply about our economy and build better outcomes for more families, that is the reason Stanislaus Community Foundation said yes wholeheartedly to this effort. And really, if what we found is, when we asked this question, nobody had an answer. Not one person that could say, this is how to invest the money to build better jobs, to build quality jobs, to build industry, to build talent pipelines. So that led us, as really elegant questions usually do, to an even deeper set of questions that we posed, especially as we saw what was happening during the pandemic. We really feel, and I know all of you agree, that there's no reason back then in 2020 America that people should be lined up around the street waiting for boxes of food from schools. And that's what we saw happening in those first few weeks of the pandemic, and we realized how many people are living on a razor's edge, on a margin, month to month. So those questions then deepened into what is the current state of our economy? What does the data tell us? Because we do want to be sort of scientific in our approach. How can we build that resilient economy based on the data, with industry leaders, with local residents, with higher education? What is it that would be a quality job in Stanislaus County? How do we introduce more of those? How do we introduce a better mix of jobs? And to do that, how do we really invest in significant industry and small business growth in the next decade and beyond? We know that to answer those types of questions, it's not going to be one person, one agency, one entity, one leader. It requires all of us rowing in the same direction. And there are communities that have really built that type of robust investment agenda with concrete strategies. So that is what Stanislaus 2030 endeavored to do. We came to you and promised you that within 1 year, we would work with business leaders, higher education, community residents, and many others to really think through, rooted in data, co-funded by the business sector. So we brought business leaders to the table with funding to support this effort. And in a year, we have identified the highest leverage strategies in small business, talent development, industry development, that we think bear significant public and private investment in the next decade. So that was the vision of Stanislaus 2030, and I'm proud to say we've realized the first phase of that vision, and you're going to be seeing the investment agenda not just today, but in the months to come. We did receive, as I mentioned, significant private support. Really want to acknowledge all of these supporters, Kaiser, Beard, Oak Valley Community Bank, the Porges family, Wells Fargo, the city of Modesto, City of Houston, the City of Waterford, and Stanislaus County. Really appreciate that. I will tell you, I was at the Economic Summit in Bakersfield last week, and I was talking to Lenny Mendonca, the former executive director of GoBiz and a Turlock native, and I asked him, Lenny, is there one Board of Soups, and like one county in your mind in the country that has actually thought about potentially going through a comprehensive planning process as we've done in the past year, and then committing some source of funding potentially? He said, I can't think of one. That Stanislaus County indeed is the only community in the country that is this strategic and thinking about how to strategically invest what essentially is a windfall. Whether you agree with it ideologically or not, but we do have a window that's opened up and an opportunity to spend public funds very wisely and prudently, but also very strategically. So this was our journey in the past year. We brought together a backbone team. We hired Brookings to do some incredible market assessments, all of which on our website. Really pulled together the data. We brought along Debrief, and you're going to be hearing from Manny Escamilla in a moment, to really engage the community. We did industry roundtables, focus groups, individual interviews, surveys, multiple meetings to really begin to understand what exactly is happening in our economy. And again, it was rooted in data, but stories and narrative were incredibly important to us too. We took all of that, and it was led by an executive committee that I'm going to introduce in a moment. And we really then identified the key implications that led us to understand where would our money best be spent. And we used some really incredible frameworks that I'm going to share with you in a moment too. So this was multiple partners at the table. Please know this was a heavy, heavy lift to bring this many people to the table. We had an executive committee of 31 leaders, a leadership council of 200 plus community members and leaders, an elected officials roundtable that all of you were a part of that was briefed along the way, many community members, and then we had 5 work groups that essentially over 10 weeks developed the strategies that are in the investment blueprint. All of that was supported by the Chief Executive Office, Jody, Tina Rocha, his team, also Stanislaus Community Foundation, Brookings, and our project managers, including Catherine Larson and Karen Warner, that are here today. Here are the executive committee members, and I'd like to recognize they are some of them here today. Co-chairs Dylan Olvera and Yamolet Valladolid, Catherine Davis, Dr. Shantanu Bandopade, our supervisors Manny Grewal and Terry Withrow, from the CEO's office Tina Rocha, Doris Foster, Dr. Carrie Knudsen-Miller is here on behalf of CSU Stanislaus and President Ellen Jun. So this really was, you could see there, labor was at the table, our Economic Development Corporation was at the table, our cities, Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Workforce Development, our credit unions, our private industry leaders, MJC and Stan State. So again, multiple people coming to the table to learn together, study the data, and ultimately the outcome was develop an investment blueprint so that when people come to our community, and not just come, but we go out and proactively begin to seek investments in strategies that really have meaningful outcomes. Right now, a lot of communities are, open for investment, let's say, but very few actually have an agenda, and they say this is what's going to produce the highest number of quality jobs in our community. And as you saw earlier, we need more of those types of jobs. So these are some of the frameworks I mentioned that we use to drive the entire initiative. I think you would hear most economic development practitioners tell you it's just about employment rate. And you're going to see data that CEO Hayes is going to share with you in a minute. It's not just about employment rates or unemployment rates. It's about the types of jobs. It's about who has access to those jobs, what type of training is needed to get into those jobs, how affordable is that training, what is the GDP of our county, how are we moving people along pipelines to prosperity, and more of them. So this is one of the frameworks. And then we also focused our strategies around these 3 drivers, which are above the line, and the 2 enablers. And again, this is from Brookings. And what they basically taught us and taught the executive committee is, look, you have limited time and attention and resources. Where do you want to spend it? And this is evidence-backed. This has worked in many other regions across the country and the world, because they've advised other communities around the world, that really at the end of the day, economies prosper or fail if they do or don't do these things. And that is really focus on traded industry clusters. For every traded industry cluster, it produces a locally serving job. So every job in ag will produce 5 locally serving jobs, such as teachers and nurses. Those jobs, if they're higher wage jobs in those industry clusters, will produce even more locally serving jobs. And so we really understood that and dived into the data, and you'll see in the investment blueprint, we have identified a significant industry cluster focused on ag and the future of ag that we think shows tremendous promise to create middle-skill, middle-wage jobs that are largely been carved out of our community and around the country. Another driver is talent and talent development. How are we preparing our future workforce? And then innovation. They even studied how many patents are coming out of Stanislaus County. Where are they coming from? What are those patents for? It's fascinating, and again, all of this data is on our website. And the 2 enablers, that if those 3 drivers are to move forward and succeed at scale, You need to have significant infrastructure, built environment and digital environment, and you need to have governance. You need to have higher ed institutions at county, cities, municipalities that are really working together and offer shared governance. So I'm going to turn this part over to Jody.
Thank you very much, Marianne. So on this chart, and it might be hard to see on this screen, but it is clearly articulated in the handout that we have available in the back there. We have our job growth in Stanislaus County over the last decade, leading up to 2020. And you can see that we've had decent overall job growth numbers over that period of time. The gray area of that chart represents the public sector. The blue area represents locally serving industries. So these are internal jobs that are, somebody sells you a cup of coffee and you sell them a t-shirt. But those are things that are occurring within the framework of the community, not outside of the community. And then the green jobs there are the traded sector. Those are individuals that are in a job where the goods and services being performed are leaving the county with wealth coming back into the county. So you can see over time, the public sector certainly had reductions in the early part of the decade, but then rebounded. Locally serving jobs have been very, very strong in Stanislaus County. The vast majority of our job growth has been in the economy circulating amongst itself within the community. However, traded sector jobs have basically been flat or declining in the last half of that decade, from 2010 to 2020. And then clearly at the very end, it's very graphic. You can see it. Everyone in all three sectors struggled during the time of COVID as well. So if you look at this next chart, this is actually more telling than the prior chart because this compares us to national averages. And what you want to see is what does our growth look like in comparison to any of our peer groups on a national level. And you can see here that our goal is to exceed the national average for traded sector jobs. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But unfortunately in our community over this last decade, we actually were below the national average for job growth with the traded sector. Above the national average for the locally serving jobs and the public sector, but as Marianne said, the traded sector jobs are where you're going to benefit the economy on a much larger scale. You'll see this on the next chart. And so by selling exports, traded sector firms are going to bring outside money into the local economy where it multiplies. It literally is that simple. So funds come into the community through that process, circulate, and benefits the entire economy. The other thing that's really important is that on a national level, you'll see that traded sector jobs are generally a much higher quality job than a locally serving job in general across the board. These are large macroeconomic numbers. Traded sector jobs on average would be at about 107,000. These are average annual earnings nationwide in 2020, while locally serving jobs are almost half of that at about 58,000. So that sets forward why we're so focused on trying to improve traded sector jobs in Stanislaus County. The next set of numbers I want to focus on is the data that Brookings brought to us that, in most respects I don't think was a surprise to many people in our community. However, it really is important to see exactly what these numbers are. And Brookings did immense work to determine what does it cost to live in Stanislaus County. And then based on the wages of the individuals and the family makeup in our community, how many people are in self-sufficient families and how many of them are in struggling working families. And as part of our data book, you can go on our website. We'll give you a link a little bit later in this. You can go into more of the detail to understand how you get to those calculations and so forth. But I just want to highlight some of the larger numbers here. We have about 255,000 self-sufficient families in Stanislaus County. That's a little below half of the total. But we also have about 290,000 living in struggling households. That's over half of our community struggling to make ends meet, literally the title of this chart. So our effort is focused on this long-term improvement for our economy and families. So we focus our statistics related to children in the community. And so you look at all of that and you say, well, what kind of goals are we going to set? What are we trying to accomplish? And we zero in on, okay, how many children are growing up in struggling households? So we have about 145,000 children in Stanislaus County. 62% of them are growing up in struggling families. Okay, that's a large, large number. And the other really interesting thing about that number that I think was a surprise for many in this process is that of all those children growing up in struggling families, it's about 90,000 children. Of all of them that are growing up in struggling families, 85% of them have at least one adult working in the home. So these are not families where people are not working. These are families with adults working, and they're still not able to provide all of the basic economic needs that would be required in any household. So for many of us, anytime we felt overwhelmed by this effort and initiative, we have to remind ourselves of those numbers. We have to remind ourselves of why it's so important to continue to focus on this work. So you take that work and you think about, well, okay, what level of job opportunities are currently available in our community, and what would it take to make a significant dent in those statistics I just mentioned? So we have 3 different categories of jobs that Brookings Institute has brought to our attention and said, here's how you should slice your pie of jobs, and here's how you should look at them, again, on a very macro level. And so you have categories of what we call good jobs, promising jobs, and what we also call other jobs. So the Brookings framework provides that good jobs pay a sufficient wage to support your household while also providing health insurance and most likely retirement benefits, and they also provide career pathways. The promising jobs category may not pay a self-sufficiency wage or have full benefits, but they do provide career pathways and they do lead to good jobs. You're always going to have a mix of good and promising jobs, people who are moving up this ladder. And I think, you know, most all of us throughout our entire working career spent time in each one of these categories of job quality. The other jobs category do not meet any of these standards. They do not provide a basic sustainable wage. They may also not provide, or they do not provide, health insurance, and certainly not retirement, and they do not appear to be providing career pathways for someone to improve their economic situation along the way. So our reality in Stanislaus County is that 65% of the current jobs we have in Stanislaus County fall into the other jobs category that I just mentioned, and a small 13% are classified by Brookings as good jobs. So Brookings challenged our executive committee to set a goal for the future. It truly was at the very onset of the process, and it was a little surprising to some of us that they said, before we go do any of this other work, you have to tell us what are you aspiring to do, and they challenged the executive committee with that. And the goal that was identified was that we want to produce enough quality jobs, good jobs in Stanislaus County to lift half of the children from struggling families into self-sufficiency families. That was the goal. What would it take to do that? Brookings answered that question by saying, in order for you to do that, over time, you will need to produce 40,000 jobs in the good jobs category that are paying approximately $28.58 per hour with benefits to meet that goal. So that seemed very, very daunting to everyone in this process. But we cannot let that, obviously, be a deterrent to us. This is something we have to work on over time. It's not something that you resolve through 1 or 2 specific initiatives, but over time. And I was very pleased to see that ultimately the investment agenda reflects not just early wins, things that we can do quickly that might bring, you know, support and relief to individual members of the community in a short order, but also have very long-term strategies that we think align with this type of a goal that Brookings, but I would like to say Brookings set the goal. It really was the executive committee of Stanislaus 2030 set that goal, and Brookings provides the answer. So in a short version, I just want to make sure this can be done, and with the investment blueprint, we can influence this trend line over time in a more positive direction. So next I want to introduce Emmanuel, or Manny Escamilla, from the firm Debrief. Manny is one of the founders of the firm, and it was truly very fortunate for us and our entire team that Debrief was coming into play here in the community and had multiple other projects that they demonstrated their ability to do authentic engagement, to make sure that we reached every corner of the community, to provide input on this process. And we've asked Manny to be here today to share the work that Debrief did.
Thank you, CEO Hayes, and I appreciate the time from the committee here. So the engagement with Stanislaus 2030 was definitely an insightful engagement, but also one that was very fun and hopefully has great impact in our county. When it comes to the engagement that Debrief did, we took a three-level approach to how we viewed the community. First, we sought very intimate one-on-one sessions and small group sessions with focus group and interviews to understand people's individual experiences. So we did this with diverse communities of color, along with young professionals, trade school leaders, just to get an understanding of their definitions of what the economy is and also their hopes for the future. The second level was engaging in groups and segments in a bit of a larger setting through forums. So these forums were anywhere from 30 people to 50 people plus in size. And this was meant to share what Stanislaus 2030 is, but also get feedback from them on their hopes for the future and also their understandings of what the local economy is and what it means to them. And we did this with Spanish-speaking communities in Patterson, with civic leaders here in Modesto, and also young professionals who attend Stan's Day at MJC. And then finally, we did a more mass, broader outreach with a community survey. So we engaged, we had 765 survey submissions, 527 of those were actually completed surveys, and that was countywide. So this was the three levels of engagement that Debrief worked on in engaging Stanislaus County to ensure that the feedback that we provided the Leadership Council, Executive Committee, and those who would be reading the blueprint, that the feedback from the community was substantial. So here's what we learned at a very high level. So starting with small businesses, we really wanted to engage minority-owned businesses as we see them as a catalyst for future growth. But they weren't necessarily the only business segment that we tapped. We definitely tapped others, but they were the focus of our engagement. And we see that at a high level, there are really three things that they desire or that they need more of, and that's lack of startup funding, lack of technical assistance support, so how to form their business, how to incorporate their business, the different reporting systems for the IRS, et cetera, and also a need for pre-launch assistance. So a lot of this was around mentorship, finding individuals who can support them, understand how to bring a product to market, how to do marketing, et cetera. And we see that these are large barriers for them. One example is just in the formation of a company is something that turns a lot of potential entrepreneurs away. The high costs for forming a company, the high costs even before a product is made, is something that's definitely a deterrent for a lot of minority-owned businesses. Second is young professionals, and we found really 4 key insights: that building generational wealth is a priority. We're seeing a trend that a lot of individuals who are graduating from local colleges do have a desire to stay here, and they do want to build a life for themselves and their families, and they see a way to doing that is being able to build generational wealth. But currently they're a little bit unsatisfied with their career trajectories. A lot of them shared that having a degree locally does not necessarily equate to finding a livable wage job. So a lot of them are working jobs that they're overqualified for, that are not allowing them to be able to afford an apartment, let alone being able to support their families. There's also perception for this demographic that large companies prefer outside talent. A handful of individuals who we met with discussed that they knew that like Gallo was bringing people from the Bay here for work, and that there isn't a clear process while they're in college on how to apply for like Gallo, Foster Farms, et cetera. So there is a barrier for them in being able to understand how to tap in to good paying jobs locally. And also that many of them are people of color, many of them are interested in entrepreneurship, but they feel too debt burdened to take the risk. So that's a huge barrier for the potential economic prosperity of Stanislaus County. Third is civic leaders. There's a lot of social sector leaders who I believe are really the backbone of this area, people who have dedicated their lives, just as all of you have, to the betterment of society in our local county. These are nonprofit leaders, individuals who work as administrators of social sector organizations, who are passionate about seeing the county prosper, but just don't know their role when it comes to economic development, and that's a big barrier for them to be getting involved. There is also a huge concern that there's a perfect storm for marginalized communities with inflation, higher rent, wage gaps, lack of community trust and access to services that as we go further down this road, that it'll hit those who are poor much harder than it'll hit those who are more affluent. And finally, lack of access to essential services really hinders socioeconomic vitality. So we see this a lot with, again, lower income demographics that, given that they don't necessarily hold tangible assets or investments, they view a successful economy as having a bank in their neighborhood, having access to multiple grocery stores, having a community that doesn't have closed storefronts, doesn't have graffiti. So they understand a prosperous local economy in that way, and we see that some communities throughout the county feel that the economy is not prosperous because where they live does not reflect a prosperous quality of life. So here are some key findings from the survey that we think are really insightful, and we hope that they land well with you. So here are the 4 insights. The first is that community members' overall outlook is not optimistic. So we had, there's 2 points to this. One is that more than half of everyone who responded, remember we had 527 respondents, more than half of respondents feel that they have fewer economic opportunities than they did 12 months ago. And most respondents feel that there will be about the same or fewer economic opportunities in the next 12 months. So it's pretty alarming. Insight number 2 is that community members view the economy as an access issue. So what we found when we, from the survey, is that most respondents view like having sufficient housing as being something that demonstrates a strong local economy. Having access to high quality education is something that demonstrates a high functioning local economy. Employment with a livable wage is an example of a high functioning local economy. Access to goods and services that are affordable demonstrate a strong local economy, and many feel that currently it's not reflective of that. Third, that community members are skeptical about their long-term economic prospects. So we found that more than half of all respondents feel that the economic opportunities will decline in the next 5 years, and respondents are unsure or were unsure that they can reach their definition of economic prosperity with the current opportunities available to them. It's unsettling in some ways, but given the impact of the pandemic, and also given the impact of the current economic state, it's not out of sort to see that this would be something that would be on the minds of individuals. It's also important to say that the survey was done, I would say, relatively strategically looking back, and that it was done towards the end of our engagement process. So this was already after the impact of the pandemic had begun to wane, and it also demonstrated that individuals are attempting, or the ones who shared, were attempting to find work, were attempting to create a life for themselves post-pandemic. So we feel that our findings demonstrate that viewpoint and kind of their holdings of what the economy looks like currently and into the future. That's all. Thank you.
Hi again. So we took all of the resident engagement, all of the data that Jody mentioned, all of that feedback, and we arrived at these implications and considerations midway through Stanislaus 2030. What we now know is the region must prioritize existing and emerging traded sectors. We have identified one that we feel really will create at scale middle-skill, middle-wage jobs that's localized, specialized to us. It's based on ag. It has talent adjacency. We can move a lot of the workforce from food manufacturing and ag that will be displaced as a result of automation, which will happen. We want our ag firms to automate and be prosperous, but we know that a lot of jobs will have to shift elsewhere. And this new industry cluster that we've identified really has the potential for that. And It has proximity to Silicon Valley for R&D. So really prioritizing traded sectors. We also know that our workforce system, including higher ed, is largely fragmented and not working in earnest with local industry to produce the type of workforce that our local industry needs. So we're also trying to address those serious impediments. We also know that business and entrepreneurship supports are largely missing or also fragmented, especially for minority-led and women-owned business. I always say to people, yes, there's a lot of entrepreneurs that live in North Modesto. There are also a lot of entrepreneurs that live on Crow's Landing Road or have their business on Crow's Landing Road and elsewhere. Our Latino small business, our women-owned small business, and they've largely done it without access to financial supports, access to traditional capital, and we're seeking to really change that. The other 2 points that we've really begun to understand is creating a shared agenda and then going after public and private funding is the way other regions are leapfrogging ahead of other parts of the state, including Fresno, Bakersfield, and the Inland Empire. So inland regions like ours that face the same demographic and economic challenges that are largely disconnected from the metro regions and disconnected from Sacramento or DC, but they are saying it doesn't matter. We're going to take matters into our own hands, create our own agenda for economic prosperity, and then go out there and find the funding, and that's exactly what we're endeavoring to do here as well. And then the larger systemic issues that impact quality of life, and we address some of those too. So these are the 5 work groups we launched midway through. We once again went through a significant community engagement process through this. Multiple local residents and leaders came together to address talent development, small business, governance, traded sector development, and removing those non-skilled barriers to jobs and training. So this is it. This is the investment blueprint. You have your packets. There is much more data and information in your packet. So this is just one slide. I know that we're all going to cough at that $75 million price tag. Please know we are not expecting the county to commit certainly that amount of money. What we're asking the county to do is obviously blend public support, public investments with significant private investments. We really feel that government, spending around some of these strategies will spur not just more funding, but in the hundreds of millions potentially in the decade to come. So these are really catalytic investments that can be made over time by multiple partners, including the county, but many others, to really drive, again, those 40,000 quality jobs that Jody mentioned, and then remove the barriers to those jobs that often exist in communities like ours. So I know there'll be more information disseminated. I urge anyone listening to this presentation to go to our website because you'll see the full blueprint there. You'll see much more detail around these strategies. And again, more implementation plans are forthcoming around all of these strategies as well. I really want to thank all of you for your partnership. Again, I can't think, and I've checked, any other Board of Supervisors around the country or commissioners that have decided to take this window, take this time, and really be strategic and long-term about how to move a community forward. So really appreciate your leadership around all of this. Jody?
Okay, I've got just a few additional slides to wrap us up. We are requesting some additional use of ARPA funds to get us through the next few months, and I want to describe that, but I'm going to go off the slide for just a moment because recognizing that this is the one area where we actually have a request for the board to take action on today, I think it's important that we add a little more context. And again, bless you. Again, as mentioned in the multiple times, you'll get a lot of this detail in there, but I'll just mention some of it. So along the way, as we're building this, one of the very pleasant surprises we had is that there was significant interest we were receiving right away as we were going out and meeting industry representatives in multiple ways here. And the most notable one was in our bioproducts conversations. And what is bioproducts? It's essentially the easiest way to describe it is you take a lot of organic waste, ag waste in our community. We have in abundance here, and through a scientific process, you're going to introduce microbes, and you're going to turn that waste into something that's useful and beneficial that can be sold. Resins, all kinds of materials that are today, in most cases, manufactured with petroleum-based products. So it's replacing petroleum-based products with a scientific process to repurpose agricultural waste. That's essentially what bioproducts is about. So we received a lot of interest right away as we started to dig into this area, and the research and analysis conducted by Brookings concludes that there are just a handful of communities in the United States that are uniquely situated to be the leadership or in a leadership role in the bioproducts industry in the future. And it turns out that our region here in the northern San Joaquin Valley ranks the highest of all of those regions. They did a very deep dive to look at, what would make any particular region more competitive than others. And when you look at the significant diversity and volume of our agricultural production in Stanislaus, in this region, not just us, but also to our south with Merced and San Joaquin Valley, as well as the existing ag-based manufacturing and the proximity that we have to these technological resources in the Bay Area, you mix all of that together, and Brookings would tell you that we are basically the top of all those regions to consider this opportunity. You're going to hear much more about this in our board workshop. So because of this, these new opportunities have consistently emerged as our team has initiated discussions with leaders throughout the bioproducts industry. So Stanislaus County and this small team of folks that have been working on this for the last 6 months, we are now a thing. We already are a thing to people. People are recognizing our interests. Not any other governments are reaching out and trying to be strategic about this particular industry as we've set forward in this investment blueprint. So it seems that each time we share our story with someone new, they want to introduce us to 4 or 5 other folks, whether it's private or nonprofits or public sector agencies that can help us along the way. So it continues to grow with every single conversation. So recognizing this tremendous opportunity that we see, we are requesting board support to continue funding our consulting team to grow our presence in the bioproducts industry over the next 3 months while we evaluate the final recommendations on where we would like to invest the remaining ARPA funds. And as stated earlier, we expect to have those recommendations before the board in late January, but that gives us 3 months of downtime unless we take these interim measures to continue the work. And we absolutely want to make the recommendation that we continue that work and continue in our momentum. I also want to recognize who has performed some of this work. So our consulting team consists of the Brookings Institution on a national level, as well as some local staff led by Karen Warner, who's with us here today. This team has already surpassed all of our expectations through the initial phases of Stanislaus 2030 with their contacts or their contracts in this process through the Community Foundation. And I do want to take a moment, if you'll indulge me, I just want to share one example of the work that they did that we hadn't even contemplated when we formed their original contracts. Along this way, they determined or found that the National Science Foundation had a regional innovation grant opportunity. So this team, consisting of Brookings and Ms. Warner, identified this planning grant opportunity. It aligned very directly with the bioproducts initiative, and they mobilized quickly. They developed a 20-plus page grant application that would bring in up to $1 million in Stanislaus County to fund this work. So before we even delivered you the investment blueprint, that team went out and applied for $1 million to get the ball rolling even further. What was more impressive was the number of organizations locally that jumped onto this idea and said, we want to support this idea. They saw the work as it was emerging, and they said, count us in. We had over 25 organizations join that grant application with the National Science Foundation. Those included universities, colleges, industry associations, environmental groups, economic workforce development organizations, and our new advocates that we have found at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab that I want to talk about in a moment. UC Merced and the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab were co-applicants for us in this grant application. This is just one of the examples of the type of work that the consulting team has taken on. They've done an excellent job exceeding our expectations, and we want to keep them working as much as we can. So as stated in the agenda report, the entire budget for Stanislaus 2030 was approximately $800,000, with the county paying for just over half, $450,000 of that original budget. And although the existing authority would allow me to sign agreements with the consulting firms to continue some of their work, we do believe that ARPA funding is the appropriate source to use for this work, and that requires a budget adjustment to be approved by 4/5 of the board. So some of the specific activities that we would like to work on are on your screen there. We're going to be working over the next 3 months on a bioproduct sector implementation strategy in the initial phases that would be required to operationalize that strategy. We will continue to connect with these international and national bioproducts intermediaries, associations, businesses, philanthropies. There's a whole host of folks that are very interested in our work, and we want to maintain those connections. We're going to continue to research the potential for a bioproducts facility, a lab and contract manufacturing facility that would be located right here in Stanislaus County. And together with the next thing that's on this list, launching the North San Joaquin Valley Bioindustrial Manufacturing Innovation Engine. I know that's a really, really long name, but it's basically trying to describe everything we're working on. And by the way, we're trying to come up with really interesting and easy names for everybody to understand, but this is what it is. It's a coalition of all the local partners, many of whom signed on to our grant application. We're forming a coalition, working together to show this industry, folks that don't know us, that don't do this business already in California, that we want to be the center of gravity. We want to be the place where these manufacturing jobs are located in the future. They'll also be working on supplemental materials that help us along the way, continuing to activate our state and federal funding advocacy. When we come together in December, we're going to have a whole portion of our presentation just on the federal funding opportunities that are available to support these industries. As Marianne said, we don't expect the county to pay for all these things. There's lots of other funding sources out there. We just need to prepare ourselves, align, and go get those funds. So that is the purpose for the $130,000 request to get us through the next few months, and be happy to answer any more questions about that before we're done. And then just a couple of slides to end, and we're going to end on a positive note. Our staff recommendations, we have two for you. One is to accept the Stanislaus 2030 Investment Blueprint, and the other is to authorize our auditor controller to make those necessary adjustments to increase estimated revenue and appropriations for the American Rescue Plan Act budget by $130,000. We have a budget journal attached to our report today. If you want to learn more, we have tons of information available on the website. In our agenda report, we actually linked to all the major reports that were developed by Brookings Institution and the entire Backbone team. So please take time to go there and learn more, and you can see a lot more than what we've talked about today. And I want to end on a very positive note. So a couple of photos here. So on the left here, you have Deepti Tanjori, and she is the director of the Advanced Bioproducts Process Development Unit for Berkeley Lab. That's operated through Lawrence National Laboratory with partial support from the Department of Energy. She's an incredibly bright leader with a PhD in biological engineering. You can see her on the left there sharing with Karen. And then you can see the rest of the team that went on this visit there on the right. So the reason I want to highlight Deepti is that she wrote a white paper about 18 months ago. So she argued in that white paper with her colleagues that California needs to invest immediately in pre-commercial lab facilities to ensure we capture the economic tidal wave that will emerge with the bioindustrial economy. More specifically, she argued that these new modern facilities should be built in the Central Valley, proximate to ag waste feedstock, with the added benefit of supporting struggling economies with good-paying jobs. Before we had one meeting to build Stanislaus 2030, Deepti was already out there advocating on our behalf. So last month, some of us spent about a half a day in Emeryville with Deepti and her colleagues learning more about her vision and how we may partner together. I want to thank Supervisor Withrow, who took time, an entire day basically, to make sure he got out there to spend with us. And what you see in those fermentation tanks, it's not just them fermenting, microbes in those tanks. They're literally building dreams. They're building dreams of what this future economy is going to look like, where we have clean energy jobs, literally, taking out the jobs that rely on the petroleum industry today with higher technological jobs that are available for the middle class. And we certainly recognize the economic benefit potential for Stanislaus County. What Deepti knows very clearly is that just in the next couple of years, this industry will reach about $100 billion in the next couple of years. But 20 years from now, and this is a long-range plan, it is expected that the bioproducts industry will surpass $2 trillion in available industry. Our intent is to make sure that we are the center of gravity, that this region is the center of gravity for that industry, not just in the nation, but in the world. And in addition to that, we want Stanislaus County to be the center of gravity of that region. So without Stanislaus 2030, this photo most likely never happens. And Deepti and her team now know that we're in this pole position. We're ready to do this work. She's very, very interested. Her and her entire team, all of their colleagues, are very interested in how they can expand their work that they normally do over the hill, out in Emeryville, in the middle of the Bay Area. They want to bring it here, and they want our support. So with that said, I want to thank everyone that has added to this effort over the last year. There were literally hundreds of people that fed into the document that you received as part of this presentation. And although there were just a few of us that presented today, we are going to have a couple of other presentations where we're going to bring some of the more experts in to talk about their work groups and to make sure that we can answer any and all questions about the work and recommendations. So I'm going to stop there and pause and see if you have any questions.
Very good. Thank you, Jody, and thank you, Mary Ann, Manny. Thank you, everybody, all of you who are here today. Great presentation, and as Jody said, just great work. Okay, any questions from the board? Chance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I do want to applaud the efforts. Great job, staff, the committee, wonderful work. We appreciate all your efforts and undertakings, and I do believe that this will provide dividends for our residents here in Stanislaus County. I did just have a couple specific questions regarding our engagement with our unincorporated communities, and are we seeing their input, I guess, on the levels of our incorporated communities, such as Keys, Empire, Grayson, and so on. And I do appreciate Ms. Cannon's comments regarding the vitality, the economic vitality, and our Crow's Landing Road corridor there. She's absolutely right. And I just think if we could give a little bit more boost to our unincorporated areas, such as Keys and Empire, and so on and so forth. Any efforts that we can do as a board, that'd be great. Any efforts I can do individually in my district, please let me know. But I would like to work with you and trying to get more engagement if possible.
Thanks, Chance. Buck.
I think I'd just go along the same lines as thanking everybody that had anything to do with putting the blueprint together. A lot of time and effort, data gone through. It's kind of like peeling back that economic onion here in Stanislaus County and going through all the data and actually finding out what is going on here locally. And I just appreciate all the time that everybody put into that.
Okay, thanks, Buck. Vito.
I know you're taking questions, but since we're doing comments, so I haven't been involved in 2030. I think the board knows that. Jody, if you've ever been into his boardroom, he takes his senior leadership team when we talk about housing or this 2030. It's got 3 folds, and they write out these plans, and then after talking with everyone, they race, and they come up with these big thinking, big-minded, very, I'm trying to think of the right word, ambitious, maybe that's it. Very ambitious plans. And when he rolled this out, they were talking about the groupings, the 5 groups, and to me it seemed very ambitious. And I know that Fresno Drive had done something similar, which they've been extremely successful in bringing money to their community. I think we need to dream big, we need to think big. That's the only way we're going to receive these types of money. I'm proud of the board members, but specifically the community members that came together to form those teams and come up with the ideas. Most people aren't being paid to be there. They're there because they want to make the community a better place. And that doesn't go unnoticed from the board. And this is a great path. And I really haven't received many updates because of myself. And to see how much work has been done in this short amount of time is pretty unbelievable. So congratulations. I look forward to seeing more great things come from this.
Very good. Any more questions or?
Not questions.
Okay, maybe let's hold off then just a little bit, and we'll. Okay, now I want to open it to the public, and I know we have one speaker card here from Miguel on this subject matter, on this agenda item. If you'd like to come up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, members of the board. This is a letter for you, Mr. Chairman, and the board of the supervisors. If you read carefully in the page 1 of the report, it said, "Dear Stanislaus neighbors." No name, no letter, no title, no introduction. Just "Hi neighbors," meaning who are behind this report for accountability and responsible is only "Hi neighbors." Mr. Chairman, the executive committee was formed with 31 members. From that 31 members, 15 had conflict of interest, or receiving money or working for the county. That's very sad. The purpose of this Stanislaus 2030 was to work directly with the community, listen to the community, engage the community, and not reverse. First was the executive committee, and later 3 or 4 layers of subcommittees or groups, and then the last was meeting the community. That's not supposed to be done. Supposed to be done the community first, not the executive committee. The community is first. Special groups like the low-income families, the underserved communities, they're supposed to listen and be engaged. What you did is reverse. The foundation did reverse, Mr. Chairman, with the creation of the executive committee with a lot of experts and persons that's supposed to do the good job, and I'm not questioning that, but the question is the process, and that was wrong. The other factor is the demographic. Very few times mention the Latinos. If the Latinos are over 50% in this community, the problem of the COVID-19, they hit hard to our Latino community, not only the small business Latinos. I'm talking about the human, social, and economic effect of the COVID-19, and never is a report in that. Up to date, Mr. Chairman, I'm constantly come here to your board and asking for that, and the staff refusing to do that. The question is what? I don't understand. In course, you're going to say, well, go to the Stanislaus 2030 email information. You can find out everything. But to read the report, you have to have at least 2 years of college to understand what the guy's saying. The average person don't have that knowledge or that information. To read carefully that report is a 55-page report. It's not easy to read it. I had to read it 3 or 4 times to understand really what the guy's saying. Under the $75 million, Mr. Chairman, is supposed to be in the process in 3 years. The question is supposed to be to 2026. What happened after 2026? Nobody knows. It's maybe the projection, but never was clear, and don't have timetable to do that. The big issue to me is the equity. Are we going to have equity over these millions of dollars? Are we going to have equity in regard to the race, ethnicity, and diversity and inclusion? I don't think so, because this county don't have that policy. If you don't have that policy, you cannot implement it. Who earned the departments? Or Mr. Hayes is going to implement it. So you don't have the policy. So, well, the county said that, or the state said that. No. It's your responsibility to create a policy in regard to the equity in race. The other way never going to happen. And maybe later you're going to hire the person to coordinate that, but it's going to be too late. It's going to take 2 years for him to understand what he's supposed to do. And put it down to each department, each department going to do it. That's wrong, Mr. Chairman. And the second part, Mr. Chairman, is you not mention that, Mr. Hayes. And maybe in the report that, but many members of the board never question that right now. It's the so-called new governance governments of this county. The new governance and administration structure, this is going to be like CHA, the Stanislaus Homeless Alliance. It's the same thing, or am I going to be different? The other issue, Mr. Chairman, is the 13985 executive order still not implemented by this county. The limited English proficiency, Mr. Chairman, is still not that. Even this report is not in Spanish, to giving access to the people that you saying that you working and engaged. No, never happened. And never still not happened because the reports are still in English. So how you engage that community that's supposed to understand your process of the language, you're still missing that. But the biggest issue, Mr. Chairman, is the new governance structure. And that is not clear. And you're going to have the 5th of December, Mary, a workshop. I hope that you invite us in the community to be just part, to listen to you what you guys doing under the brand app. In the same, Mr. Chairman, I'm requesting right now in the letter to have copy of the grant that was receiving to this county in regard to review and understanding and to see how we done. Because in the last 2 years, the economic development from the office in Seattle is still not giving to you the response in regard to the performance and evaluation of this 2-year process. So I'm asking for that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks, Miguel. And just so you know, the December 5th workshop, all of our workshops are always open to the public. So, yeah, so we'd welcome everybody who'd like to attend to that. So, okay, is there anybody else who would like to speak about this item? Manny, come on up.
I just wanted to offer a little bit of context to debrief's role post blueprint, and hopefully to offer some clarity for those who are in the audience. So one of the things that we heard when we engage in the community is that a lot of times groups go into the community to get feedback, but they never return with an example of like what the outcome was. So a lot of times, like, people go in, say, like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? They leave. The community never knows what happens after they leave. Debrief has made a commitment that every group that opened up their meetings for us to go in and share about Stanislaus 2030, that we're going to go back with the blueprint to explain to them like what the outcome of their engagement and of the wisdom that they shared with us was. So I just wanted to offer some clarity on kind of the post-blueprint circuit that Debrief will be doing with our community partners around the county.
Thanks, Manny. Okay. Dylan, come on up. Good morning, Dylan. How are you?
Good morning or good afternoon.
We're still morning.
I had just two things. The first comment was, Jody brought this up, and Mary Ann did as well, that Stanislaus 2030 wasn't asking the county to contribute all $75 million to these proposed projects. But if you wanted to, you're more than welcome to. And I say that jokingly, but also seriously. What's come from this work is to the true benefit of the community. The number one thing that we said in the first slide was, what if this community had a tremendous amount of funding? What would you do? Well, we'd do this. This is what we think in terms of economic development and workforce development, and ultimately generating good jobs, that this is our number one item to put forward. So those are my comments, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Dylan. Thanks for all your work on this. Okay, anybody else like to come up, speak, before we bring it back to the board? Yamilet, I could tell you were thinking about it.
Hello, Mr. Chairman and
morning.
Board of Supervisors. It was definitely a pleasure to be a part of this effort. It was an inclusive effort. I feel that we did a really fantastic job, really reaching out to the community as a whole. and really offering different spaces in the community to get their feedback as well. And we had experts at the various different groups to come up with such an amazing and incredible blueprint, like the rest of the team has stated. And I just really want to acknowledge the great work that was done by Marion Cannon and Jody Hayes, who took on the tour since the very beginning and doing a lot of presentations, getting the word out into the community. So just really want to express my appreciation to everybody involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Yamlet. Okay, anybody else? Seeing none, I will bring it back to the board for further comments, or I know we've had a lot of comments already. I don't know, Manny, you want to?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I appreciate the presentation. I know this has been many months in the making, but I do want to attest to one thing. Many times it's said that government moves slowly. Well, when you have a community that's supportive and takes the lead, it doesn't move as slowly. This actually moved very expeditiously. As somebody that's in business, I don't think I've ever seen anything move as fast. It was hard for me to keep up with. So, but the other thing was, it wasn't just moving without efficiencies. There were actual deliverables. And I've sat in those meetings, and I appreciate my colleagues allowing me and Terry, the opportunity to serve on the executive committee, because we've got to see everything happening firsthand, where there were deliverables put in place. And I say this for the community, so they understand that it wasn't just, meetings and seeing how things can get done. It was actually like, we want to accomplish this, we want to accomplish this. And today you've seen a lot of those conversations come to fruition and actually see accomplishments happening. Although it's just a start. There's a lot more to come, and there's a lot more money to be expended. But in the business world, they say sometimes you have to spend money to make money. But we're not trying to spend money to make money for the county. We're trying to spend money to make money for our community and for the residents, so they have livable wages with benefits, with children being brought up in households where money's not an issue. Coming from a household where money was always an issue, this is something that I know many of us believe in, because it independently affects us in a very positive manner. The other part of this is the organization, and I applaud all the people that were on the committee and the steering committee and the backbone committee, because you not only brought this to the community, elected officials had the opportunity to sit in when the opportunity presented itself, to ask questions and to engage. And then breaking it down into different categories, where it's just not one group dealing with everything, but many groups dealing with many things all at once. So I may be a little biased because I was on the executive committee, but I don't think I am. I think this is unprecedented. The money that's come into this community is unprecedented. We've seen it being spent on infrastructure, and now for the first time, we're seeing such a substantial investment in economic development. And it's not just the county or county leadership doing it, it's stakeholders that are community members and people outside of the community sometimes telling us things that we don't see for ourselves, just like Jody said in Deepti, looking at our community and saying, hey, this is something that you need to do. Sometimes we don't see it ourselves, so having somebody else from the outside looking in and telling us what our strengths are, because sometimes for us, we're more apologetic and less advertising of our strengths. So when somebody else says it, it feels good, and I'm glad that we're making this investment. I know our colleagues will be looking at it in the coming months, so we appreciate everything that the committee has done and how fast this is coming together, and hopefully it continues with this same type of positive and optimism and efficiency.
Thanks, Manny. So first of all, again, thank you guys all, everybody involved in this. And like Manny said, this is, for the extent government's involved in this, this is light speed compared to what normally government works at. I wish Miguel would have stayed. You know, I always appreciate Miguel's input. And for those of you who don't come to a lot of our meetings, Miguel comes often. And I look at Miguel as kind of a, you know, he's an advocate for the community, and I look at him as, if we look at the process that this went through and everybody involved and how diverse the process was and people involved in it, Miguel was he was a trailblazer in his day. And I think, I look at Miguel has inspired so many people to get involved. And I always hate that he walks out and leaves and doesn't, because what he's done has been an inspiration to many people and has really blazed a trail and then we look at this process and how inclusive it is of everybody involved, and it's because of individuals like Miguel who are out there taking arrows early on in their lives, and now we have young people coming up that received inspiration. So I kind of look at Miguel a little bit differently, and as much as I disagree with him on a lot of different things, and he beats me up a lot, he has been an inspiration, I think, to generations, at least a couple generations here. So back to this, when we look at, we say we don't expect the county to pay for the whole thing. I look at it as, if the county pays for the whole thing, it doesn't succeed. I mean, this isn't going to work if it's government-run, government-led. Government can help facilitate. That's what we do. We are great facilitators, bringing people together. But if the private sector isn't involved in this, then it's just another government program. And as soon as we go through the $75 million of government money, it's over. You know, we need the private sector. We need it to show a profit, ability to make a profit, and that's how we get this thing to work, and it succeeds. Over the years, we've seen plenty of government programs that get involved and start and kind of run the whole thing, but they don't succeed because the government is a driving force and the only reason it's there. And so once government gets out of the picture, the private sector doesn't work if there's not a profit motive. When we went up to the lab, which was very kind of inspirational, and it made us all feel like we were very dumb as we walked out of there. I always say debits are on the left, credits are on the right. That's all I got to know for an accounting. But when you saw all these tubes and all these things that were going on there, it was just amazing how intelligent these people are. And if they think this is a growing industry, I'm going to believe them that that's where it's going to go. We talk about $100 billion, initially $100 billion industry, I think you said. And we look at our ag industry here, it's $3.5 billion. So, I mean, just think what a jump that would be to our economy. And that's our number one industry, ag, right, at $3.5 billion. So good stuff there if this thing takes off. But again, even just looking at this facility, it does have some government support. It had a $7 million budget, and I think $2.5 million of it came from government subsidies to help make it work. So there's a role for us. There's a place for us to get involved. And if the balance of their budget is now coming from the private sector, which is funding, paying them, contracting with them to do this work, to prove out these products. So just a great potential there. And I could see eventually that they'll, what I would hope if we end up with one of those here, that it will eventually totally be the private sector that runs this thing, and it won't be something that's subsidized, but it doesn't help start it, again, not the whole thing. So all kinds of potential here, all kinds of good things that everyone has done, and couldn't be more proud of all the work. And a lot of this work, people aren't getting paid for it to do this, right? It's people doing this out of the goodness of their heart and to try to make this a better community. So I applaud everyone's effort. I'm really looking forward to the workshop. That's where we're going to get into the details, and the rubber's going to hit the road as far as what we're going to do and where this money's going to go, how much we're going to put towards it. And so that'll be great conversations to have. And then of course it's all got to be data-driven, right? That we'll be able to see once we make these investments, are we getting results? It's all got to be results-based. I know that we pride ourselves here in the county that we make investments in a results-based accountability. So I really look forward to not only determining where we're going to invest this money, how much we're going to invest, but how we're going to measure that success, which is what we always talk about through our focus on prevention stuff. So good stuff, really good stuff. Thank you all for what you've done. And we've only just begun here, and let's get into the workshop and we'll go from there. So with that, If there's any other comments, we'll look for, I think we have a recommendation for the additional $130,000 to be spent, and then just an acceptance of the report is what we're looking for. Uh-oh. Tom, you can...
I just want him to show the recommendations, so that that's up.
Okay.
Like 2 slides back.
There we go. Okay, so we're looking just to accept the report and then to a recommendation to spend the additional $130,000 to continue this process as we're going through the further board review of this funding. So, looking for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you all very much. Great work. Okay, we will move on now to correspondence.
This board has received the correspondence and claims as noted on the agenda.
Acknowledge receipt of correspondence and refer as recommended on the agenda. Do we have any Board of Supervisor reports?
Just a quick one.
Chance.
Happy to announce we are going to be having our second movie in the park this weekend, November 5th, which is Saturday, in Empire at the Empire Community Park. We will be showing the movie Coco. For those in attendance, I do want to thank our Parks and Rec team, our executive office team, and my field representative, Russell Fowler, for coordinating this family event.
Coco, you got to tell us what Coco is. I don't know Coco.
It's a great movie. I believe it's a Pixar, Disney movie, but it's
Okay.
about the Day of the Dead. So remembering those who have come before us.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Chance. Anybody else? Any reports? Okay, Legislative, Fiscal, and Management Report, Chief Executive Officer Jody Hayes.
No report this morning.
No report. Okay, we are going to adjourn into closed session. Before we do, Tom, you want to let us know what we're doing?
Yes, we have several items in closed session. First, the board will be sitting as the In-Home Supportive Services Public Authority, and that closed session is the conference with labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. The agency negotiators and the labor organization are noted in the agenda. Then we will come back as in closed session as the Board of Supervisors. The first item there is conference with labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. Agency negotiators Jetty Hayes, Tamara Thomas, Ryan Leop, Kerry Griffin, and the labor organization is the SEIU Local 521. The second item is existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, Subdivision D1. One case, Alvin Estrada versus County of Stanislaus et al., and that's in the Superior Court of California, County of Stanislaus, and the case number is CV 19003153. And the last item is public employee appointment. The title is the Public Health Officer, and the Government Code section is 54957 Subdivision B. And with that, it'd be appropriate for public comment.
Okay, any public comment before we go into closed session with regard to those items? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for being here.